everyone. Welcome to another episode of Realistically. And we still don't have the theme song, but I did get the theme song from Janet today, and I started working on a medley video for that. Janet can confirm, right?
Yes, we did. It's in the works. I know we've said that for like 2 months now. No.
It will be seriously ready very soon because I actually started working on making the theme song into a nice video montage.
Yes, I want to check to see we're going live on Twitter for the first time too.
Oh yeah, let's check that.
So I want to see if that's working here.
Okay. So where shall we begin? I'll read some of the comments out on YouTube. Meanwhile. So R.I.P. George Habash says, I love that song. Before Bad Empanada was banned from Twitch, he played a song on a continuous loop before his stream. The channel Flames of Liberation has good content on the history of Baathism. Thank you. I'll check that out. Hello, everyone. Baathist Iraq was independent and in charge of their own resources. After the invasion, the U.S. ravaged the country. I've written a great article about that. It's called The Business of War. Banks, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia. Control Room. Absolute banger of a track. Petanmilio. Saddam may not have been perfect, but I like him more than the people the U.S. And actually, even the man who tore down Saddam Hussein's statue regrets doing that. He said, if I had to do this again, I would put the statue back and apologize for what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, like I said, check out my article, The Business of War, where I mentioned how they privatized all these like wheat. And so Iraq grows, there's like many different species of wheat, but the four major species is for pasta, which Iraq never needs. And it's all for export. So Iraqis are not getting that. And when Saddam Hussein was around, nearly 20% of the GDP was spent on education. And then when the US came, many schools turned into morgues.
Yeah.
Like I said, check out my article. So yeah, actually, if you even go to Afghanistan, the worst thing is that the U.S.-led coalition warlords were actually worse than the Taliban. I collected many videos where these people, like in around 2008 or 9, were feeling Taliban nostalgia because at least they could walk on the street without getting extorted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so Matt said, sorry, some asshole blew the power and I had to bother some other dude for the key to the breaker to reset shit. So he's gonna come shortly.
Okay. Yeah, he's always got things going on.
I know, it's like a house full of chaos. Hi, Norville Rogers. And then Petan Milio says Cold War propaganda has not gone away. No, it's just the new Cold War. The new Cold War is that the US is getting... Okay, so there was an article written by the RAND Corporation talking about the China window, where the US allegedly has naval superiority with China until 2026. So if they want to try to start a war with China, they need to do it before 2026 or else they're screwed. But the Ukraine thing that they didn't expect from Russia is actually kind of giving China a little bit of a breathing room in order for them to build up whatever they need to build up to protect South China Sea, which is thousands of miles away from the US, and the US has no business being in the South China Sea. Mm-hmm. So that's what kind of a lot of these geopolitical chessboardy moves are about. That's why the U.S. is upset that China tried to do actually successfully did an agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia and restored diplomatic relations between them. So it's already well underway. Hey, Matt.
Yes.
Can we make him smile? Okay, perfect.
Hey, can everyone hear me?
Yes. So
Awesome.
We were talking about the new Cold War, and we talked about how Iraq was better with Saddam Hussein, and we were just reading out the comments. So let's get started with... Well,
Real estate.
Yeah, let's get started with real estate. I bet you guys didn't think we're going to talk about real estate sales.
I'm always prepared to be talking about real estate. That's what happens when you're running communist circles.
Hold on. Give me 1 second.
I also live in Massachusetts, which doesn't have a government. It has a real estate cartel.
All right, I'm just going to pull the screen up. Hold on. Is it on screen now?
Laugh66 said, hello, friends. And Petan Milo says it was 2025 and not 2026, and he's probably right. I was going off of memory, and my memory can be faulty often.
Or it could be the end of 2025, maybe.
Okay. So Janet, would you mind reading it out since I can't face the camera and read the screen?
So this is from the real estate agent Keller Williams, which I have one in my hometown. Israel's #1 real estate one-stop shop, offering all your real estate solutions under one roof. Israel's leading developers, bringing their best products with special deals. And they have realtors, lawyers, mortgage advisors, tax assessors, and interior designers. And then they list a whole bunch of...
Yeah, and all of this is supposed to be built on top of where Gaza used to be, right? That's
No. This is actually West Bank stuff.
Oh, okay. Wait. Then it says March 3rd, Danny Central, to learn more or to help buy more genocide land. I don't know what it is. March 3rd, Danny Center, Thornhill, Toronto, California, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m.
That's what that one's Canada.
Yeah, March 5th, Congregation at Ahavat Torah, Englewood, New Jersey, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. March 7th, Young Israel of Lawrence, Cedarhurst, Long Island, New York, 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. March 10th, the Leffel School, 555 West Hartsdale Avenue, Hartsdale, New York, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m.
This is why I'm not joking around when I say we need to return Israelis to their ancestral land of Crown Heights.
Yeah. And then it says info@homeinisrael.net.
Yeah.
Scan to register.
Yeah, scan to register, and brought to you by all sorts of real estate companies.
Yeah.
So
they're not going to be tattooing like serial numbers on the Gazans anymore. They're just going to put QR codes right on the back of their necks.
Exactly. And you know what? So this is the fact that they are shamelessly trying to get new settlers to go buy land in Israel, the land that does not belong to them, in the West Bank. I kind of think like it is a further piece of evidence for South Africa, or for ICJ, whatever body you want to talk about. And it is really horrific. But this conference is going on, and if anyone is in those cities, it would be nice. You don't even have to be adversarial. It could be nice to just go and kind of check out what they're saying and just write it down or videotape it or audio tape it or something and let us know what they are saying.
There be protests at these anyways.
I know, but even if you're not going to like protest, just go check it out if you can, and
get us the deets.
Yeah, get us the deets. So Patan Milio says there was a picture like this for Gaza, but I doubt they will do this. They literally have leveled the entire place. Not quite. Okay, so they have leveled the entire place, but the purpose is that exactly settlers can go and build their new houses on top of what used to be Gaza.
Yeah, they're
and many settlers. Go ahead. What were you saying, Matt?
No, sorry. It's just a comment of like they're going to build prefab ship boxes on top of this country that's like been part of history for 5,000 years.
Oh yeah. And in the northern border with, it's not quite a border, but they've put this apartheid fence in Gaza. Yeah. There are these settlers there like saying, we want to build homes there. We want to build homes there. And so it is a big it is probably the original intent of this whole.
Oh yeah.
Well,
siege of Gaza.
historically, it's always the intent. I mean, like going back to the Salem witch trials, that was a land grab. So, the once the Holocaust actually kicked off, like not just the camps themselves, but when they actually started the mass killings, that was all a primitive accumulation scam because they were recouping losses on the Eastern Front.
Exactly.
So they needed to like empty out the camps basically to put more people in so they could liquidate their assets when they went into the camp.
Oh yeah, you know what the area? I was reading this book called The Factory of Death, and so I laugh ironically because it's such a apt metaphor. You know what the prisoners used to call the area where Nazis would steal valuables from the people they genocided?
No.
Canada.
That's
dark.
That's really funny.
And on the nose, yeah. So it's in Russian. This book is called Fabrika Smerti, and I don't know if it's available in English. It's called The Factory of Death, and they talk about Canada headquarters.
Someone could translate it for us.
Oh yes, I could. If there is no translation, I will translate that chapter for you.
Okay. I read it.
So let me just show you. So this guy was Rick Siegel. He was the one at the beginning of the week that kind of was the person that brought this to people's attention.
Hi, my name is Rich Siegel. I'm a 25-year homeowner here in Teaneck. I'm Jewish. The reason that I'm telling you that I'm Jewish is because I have a concern about something that's going on in the Jewish community. On March 10th, there is scheduled to be an Israeli real estate sales event at the Keter Torah synagogue. That event violates both domestic law and international law. Violates domestic law because we had a Civil Rights Act in 1965 and a Fair Housing Act in 1968. We don't allow real estate events to be for whites only, for Jews only, for anybody only. Now, as Jews, we don't get to fly under the radar and break the law and hide it in a synagogue. It violates international law because West Bank settlement homes are going to be available for sale at this real estate event. On the website, it lists 3 different West Bank settlements. Those settlements are in and of themselves illegal by international law. If we allow this sale to go through, we are enabling a local synagogue to violate both domestic anti-discrimination laws and international law. Now, there's other reasons we shouldn't allow it, okay? There's a genocide going on right now. I don't care who that offends. More than 35,000 people have been killed. More than 13,000 children have been killed. People in this community are in deep mourning. People in this community are angry. I'm angry. What this real estate event is going to do is it's going to fan the flames. If it goes forward, there will be a demonstration. I know there's going to be a demonstration because I'm going to organize it. It will be very well attended. What I'm saying needs to be done is, I don't know how much power this mayor and this council have to actually shut down the event, but I know you have the power to recommend that it be shut down. And I'm asking you to please do it. We don't need to have more divisiveness in this community, okay? We don't need to have Jewish privilege rule the day by saying we're entitled to break the law and have this real estate event and not care about how so many people in this community feel about it. Thank you for letting me speak.
Yeah, we should try to get him on. I'll figure out who he is.
Like a Twitter account that I can follow or something like that. That was
I want to hold on, Matt. So first of all, those that was off of TikTok because I didn't grab it off of. That's why you see people not using certain words like killed and everything.
Mhm.
Sorry about that. But that is a fifth event. That is not the Keller Williams. That's not, Teaneck was not on that list.
Oh, it's a different event.
Another event. So there are lots of these events going on. And he brought up that one, and that's when someone found the Keller Williams one. So that's actually the fifth event just in, the Northeast.
Yeah, by the way, part of the housing crisis in the United States is to absolutely encourage the facilitation of this migration of settlers to the colony in West Asia.
Oh, and Biden came out and said something about the way he said it. He's like, without Israel, like almost like,
yeah, without Israel, we'd have to create an Israel.
Yeah,
we did.
I'm like, is he trying to push everyone all the Jewish people to Israel? Is it like?
Yeah, that's the goal for like pretty much like the whole community.
Hey, Jewish people, you're not safe in America because we're so.
Yeah, well, even with the non-Jewish Zionists, because like first off, if you like actually
the biggest
know anything about if you know anything about Judaism, the Jews can't live in Jerusalem until the Messiah comes, and the Messiah is somebody from the house of David. It's a very specific designation.
That's not Benjamin Netanyahu.
It's like I can't think of like a sacrilege that's comparable in any religion to like the idea of Jews living in Jerusalem before the coming of the Messiah. It's insane. So that like just on a religious level, that's like that. Now the dispensationalist Christian death cult that pretty much controls the United States is of the religious mindset that all the Jews need to be in Jerusalem for
the apocalypse,
for the return of their savior, so he can murder them all and send them to hell. Like
no, they need to start a war between Babylon and Israel, which is Iran, and then I thought there was gonna be an apocalypse. Yep, and the biggest pro-Israel lobby.
It's all very stupid. I try to keep it religious. Yeah, I try to keep the religion like out of it anyway, even though like the religion ties itself into real estate like so effectively everywhere it goes. The Judeo-Christian religions anyway, it's actually kind of really impressive.
Okay. Let me quickly remind people that the biggest pro-Israel lobby is called Christians United for Israel.
Yeah.
And they had a rally a few months ago in Washington where they had lots of anti-Semitic speakers and psychos speak.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I mean, if you want nothing more in this world than to ensure the death of all Jews by any means necessary, either the bullet or the magic space Jesus returning and then like setting them all on fire, be a dispensationalist Christian, because that's like the whole belief system. That's the culmination of everything, is just tons of dead Jews.
Patamello is pointing out the fact that Babylon really is actually Iraq. So then
close enough.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
but for their little LARPy bullshit, they're going to pretend it's Iran.
They don't. Okay. They don't. That's the whole thing. That's the point. That the Christians don't even know what Babylon is. So
yeah. Well,
ancient Babylon was Iraq. Yes.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. But they're going to pretend it's Iran because part of this involves taking over the Strait of Hormuz.
Oh yeah,
that's a very practical plan.
Can't wait till
Jesus wants the white man to control the Strait of Hormuz. Everyone knows this. It's in the Bible.
Well, from Twitch, right?
Yeah.
No, what is that? Twitch, right?
Sure.
Dimitros is, I think I'm going to pronounce it Dimitros. Hello, comrades. The Israelis are pushing and stealing land in the Americas.
Oh, yeah. We're actually going to interview the people from the Armenian headquarters in Jerusalem. But for the past 2 weeks, they've had lots of trouble. So the first week, we scheduled the interview. And then literally while the interview was going on, they were getting threatened by far-right Jewish gangs with guns. And so they politely asked to postpone the interview, which we understood. Yeah, and then the second week, again, this very similar thing happened, and they had to have an emergency meeting with the lawyers. So we said, okay, well, why don't you guys deal with this emergency of people with guns pointing things, far right people pointing guns at you, and we'll interview you in the next 2 weeks. So we will interview them. It's just that they had bigger emergencies for the past 2 weeks.
Yes, which is
Be
understandable.
that way.
It's very understandable, but
Yeah. So we have been trying, and we will get them on. Literally, like Janet can attest to this. They literally said, "Hey, we were having some disturbance, so we have to postpone the interview." And I asked, "What kind of disturbance?" And they were like, "Oh, it's nothing. It's just some people, some gangs with guns are here trying to kick us out." And I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, so, just a very polite way of asking what kind of disturbance, meaning like, are any of you dead? Like,
yeah." So luckily, no one is dead, but
yeah.
it's very frightening for them.
yeah, I can scarcely imagine actually, but I do not doubt it's terrifying.
Yeah. And they've lived there for they've lived there since like 180 or something. So they've lived there longer than both Israelis and Palestinians. If anyone, they have a bigger right.
Exactly. So, what do you want to do? Do you want to go into Syria? You still have?
Let me. I still have not finished Israel, so let's just finish off the quick highlights. So 2 days ago, Israel ended up shooting at people who were lined up to get flour. One of the saddest ones is that this photojournalist mentioned that there was a man who was lying on the ground. He looked like he had his leg was about to come off, severely injured. And he held this photojournalist's hand and said, "Hey, here's 5 kilograms of flour. Please make sure it gets to my daughters, even if I die." Well, luckily, this man did not die, and he confirmed that his daughters got the flour. But Israel selectively, allegedly edited it to make it look like a stampede in their insect edit video.
That was fucking heinous. Like,
yeah. So you can see it's all blurry, and any idiot can tell the cuts. It's not that hard.
and it was like specifically shot and then like edited in post to make them look like insects descending on like a drop of ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. They had a white filter, and the people were like filtered as black.
High contrast black and white. They shot it on like a camera that they used on the original SR-71. What are you even filming this with?
Exactly. But then when you see other people's videos, like any other people's videos, you see that who's shooting. And Israel also cruelly ran over people with bulldozers on this. And they said that they were afraid of these people who were starving. Starving people in an army, and you cannot handle like an old 90-year-old starving man. You shouldn't even have an army.
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna admit to like a firm policy right now of like I'm just avoiding like images and videos from this because like I saw that photo of what looked to be like generously about 45% of an elementary school age girl hanging from like tendons and sinew off of a chain link fence or like a falling wall or something. And then like way too soon after that, there's any length of time that would help. But like I heard a story about a tank rolling over a pregnant woman.
Don't watch that image. That is a horrific image. I've seen it to confirm it.
Which is like, by the way, that's like basically a scene out of one of the Human Centipede movies. But it happened in real life. Like pretty much like after both of those, I'm just like, I get it. I'm not looking at this anymore. I can't.
You don't have to.
You're to the point that you can't even like. All right, we're all sitting there, telling, the Israeli Goebbels,
Ilan Levy.
That we're all coming at him, but there's no even point of talking to these people. They need to be just freaking shunned off the earth.
But like I said, so that's what happened. And so today, the Biden administration dropped 38,000 meals using 3 planes. And that is about 0.017 meal per person in Gaza.
Yeah.
Or 1 meal for 1.71% of Gaza. Some of it seems like to be spoiled and expired, of course. Well, yeah. And it's less than 1 truckload. So for about everyone in Gaza, you probably need 40 trucks. So if 50,000 meals one truck can fit about 50,000 meals. So 10 trucks will fit 500,000, and for 2.2 million, you need about 41 trucks.
I heard they need 70.
Yeah, when you realize like how how simple the problem actually is, like.
So Matt, hold on a second. So 70 trucks a day is what's needed, and so it's like 50 something trucks for food, and then the rest for other provisions.
You're right. I was just counting food.
Yeah. So
they need medicine and water and stuff like that. But yeah, there's about 70 trucks a day, and it's not that hard to get it from Egypt or Jordan even, or
no, I mean it's connected land, so I mean there are roads for this.
Exactly.
There are Zionists on the road
blockading this. Exactly. And in Egypt, the aid workers are complaining about how they're like subject to excessive surge on the trucks, where basically, and a lot of these are going to spoil like food. So you can't, so some of these have expiry dates, and some of them, like, they've actually purposefully like stabbed through water tanks.
Yeah, just to check them.
Make sure they're not going to explode. And of course, I mean, you could like open the tank and drink a little bit, and that would not ruin the.
And I saw this story, but I don't know if this is just from before, because I saw the story months ago where the Israelis had put bombs in things that looked like tuna cans. And then I saw that it happened again, but I don't know if that's.
I think that happened years ago.
Someone was saying it like back in November, and then they brought it up and they said that it happened like this week again. So I don't know if people are.
There's a lot of they play the hits a lot, basically.
It doesn't matter. It happened. It's just cruel, and it happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, and for Biden, this is just pure pandering, because at the same time, this Twitter account, My Lord Bebo, which monitors like air flights, noticed that America has like opened up 2 corridors to send weapons to Israel. So this is like pure pandering, because he's getting smacked at every event. Even he can't go to not MSNBC, but NBC headquarters without having people protest him. And so this is like, he's trying to fool the dumbest, lowest common denominator. But that's just going to be the blue anon who are going to vote blue no matter who. And it's not going to actually change people who are active enough and knowledgeable enough to be protesting. So it's not actually solving the problem. But
yeah.
And I also read that they are trying to do the LBJ strategy. That's why LBJ didn't run for the second term, because he was getting protested every single spot. Yeah. So basically, they're trying to limit Biden's hangout, but it's also probably due to the senility issues.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they can use that excuse, because if he was strong enough, he'd just be like, all right, I'm going to the event. Like, you know what I mean? And now
I mean, you can ignore hecklers like every president has done.
Yeah. Other presidents have been protested and gotten to their events, but
and they've ignored. Mostly what happens is that they just start speaking, and they with
the Bush administration, they set up quote unquote free speech zones and just
I actually interviewed a person who was like on, it's called Guantanamo Bay on the Hudson. It's one of our early videos on historically. Check that out.
Right.
Okay, we'll see if I can put a link or later. So today we're gonna so we'll be back. Actually, let's do we want to show Ilan Levy now, or
get him out of the way?
Let's wait.
We're gonna do him with Galloway, so
okay, we'll do that later. Okay, yeah. So we're gonna have to so the title of this episode is Allah, Syria, Bashar, God, Syria and Bashar. So we interviewed Kevork Almassian, who's an Armenian Syrian. His brother got kidnapped by the moderate rebels, and he's going to talk about basically Syria, and it's going to be about 50 minutes. And we will, so once you listen to him, we'll come back and we'll discuss this article, which only proves his point even stronger.
Yeah. All right. Starting now.
Today we have Kevork Almassian, a Syrian native who now lives in.
Oops.
Germany, and he's going to talk to us about what happened in Syria for the past decade. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you for coming. It's a really honor because I've followed you on Twitter and I've seen many of your live broadcasts, and it's very refreshing to me because you seem to know what's going on everywhere in the world.
Actually, it's a really important thing because what's happening around the world affects us, whether it's in Ukraine or in Azerbaijan, Armenia, or in the Middle East, West Asia, or even the elections in the United States. So even if you're not interested in politics, politics is interested in you. So when some major event happens, I don't rush to comment on the issue because sometimes I don't know all the details, but I try to educate myself as much as possible. And most importantly, I like to study geography. Geography is very important to understand what is happening nowadays in different places like in Ukraine, in Palestine, in Syria, etc. Also in Nagorno-Karabakh, what happened with the ethnic cleansing of the Armenians there, right? So if you know the geography and have a little bit of historical context, you will know what's happening now. And rest assured, what's happening is different from what they say, what they tell us in the media. Usually, that's the case. So a person who is very suspicious of what the media tells us about the different geopolitical conflicts, especially that I was very, very much like, I would say my conscience was hurt when the war in Iraq happened, 2003, and I was a little kiddo back then, and I participated in the demonstrations against the war. Mm-hmm. So since then, I have conviction that there is a profit with war, right? Therefore, I try to oppose it everywhere around the world. And I try to tell the real motive that the people push against these wars, and especially in the United States, because most of the wars in this last 70 years were waged by either the United States or its allies.
You're absolutely right. I actually wrote a whole article about who profited from the Iraq war, which I can send you later. So you are Armenian, right? Mm-hmm.
I'm ethnic Armenian.
And Christian too.
Yes, I was born in a Christian Orthodox family in Aleppo. And my grandparents, the ancestors survived the Armenian genocide in 1915. And we were living in between Kilis and Gaziantep. And we had to flee for our lives, and when the deportation started, the forced deportation or the displacement of the Armenians from Eastern Anatolia. So we settled in Aleppo. We didn't go to Deir ez-Zor like most of the Armenians did, because most of the Armenians were also slaughtered in the Syrian desert. So we weren't in Eastern Anatolia. We were more close to the current borders of Syria, and we escaped to Aleppo, and since then we are there.
Okay, so so when the quote unquote Arab Spring demonstration started in 2011, what did you observe from Aleppo?
Actually, before Aleppo, I was very enthusiastic about what's happening in the Arab world. For example, in Tunisia and Egypt, we thought really, even in Syria at the beginning, in the 3 months, we thought this is a genuine democratic movement. And because I myself was a student of international relations and diplomacy, I thought that the political liberalization of Syria could lead to more also individual and personal gains for me, right? Because I would have opportunities in political field or in think tanks, etc. And but it took me only 3 months to realize that this was not really a spring; it was more an autumn, let's say, for the darkness. Yes.
Yeah, for me, the first time I realized it is when I saw some of the protesters, and I was like, wait a minute, they look like they're peddling Salafism.
Yes. Actually, myself, I was. Everybody knows. If every Syrian who followed me, because I was active in Arabic on Facebook when it started, I was in support of, for example, a Syrian opposition figure called Haitham Manna, and I was fooled by the Syrian opposition, those who called themselves the moderate Syrian opposition, and I really thought that they are looking for democracy and human rights in Syria, and who would not want for his country to be more democratized, right? This was just like the naive me. And then, because I was very tech geek, I would say, I was like sitting in front of YouTube and watching all these videos from the demonstrations. I was like, hold on, like the people who are leading the demonstrations in Syria against Assad, they don't say we want democracy. They don't say we want human rights. The first recorded demonstration against the government in Syria happened in the city of Jabli, in the coastal side of Syria. I think it was on the 15th of April 2011. And the people who participated in the demonstration, they took over a security apparatus headquarters. And they went to the balcony and they started telling the government their demands. And the first demand was that they want to abolish the mixed gender schools in Syria. Like they want the males to be separate from the females. It's like, what's happening here? And the second demand was that the women who wear burqa, they cover their face completely, they should be allowed again to teach in the schools. So in Syria, the woman who is completely covered the face, you don't see the face, right?
Like this.
They're allowed, they are allowed, everybody is allowed to wear whatever they want in Syria. But in the school, if you're going to teach children, the children has to have a communication, face communication with the teacher. He has or she has to see the teacher and who he's communicating with, right? So that was the only place where the women who used to wear a burqa are not allowed to work, the only field, right? So this was the second demand. And I was like, those are not the demands that I learned that like I wanted more secular values in the community and in the society, right? And then we learned also in 3 months later that the Facebook site, which was calling for, so they were choosing the dates, the names of the demonstrations, the locations of the demonstration, and everything on Facebook. And the name of the page was called the Syrian Revolution Against Bashar al-Assad in Arabic. And the guy who was behind the Facebook site, we learned later, 3 months later, he was the son of a very famous Muslim Brotherhood leader in the 80s who escaped Syria to Sweden. And he's in Sweden. He is a Muslim Brotherhood cleric, and he is leading the demonstrations from Sweden in Syria, and he's choosing the slogans, he's choosing the logos, he's choosing what the people have to say and chant. Like it's June 2011, and the demonstrators are saying, for example, we don't want Hezbollah, we don't want Iran, we want King Abdullah to come and rule us. And they're saying like, we don't want to see the minorities. They say the Christians should go to Beirut and the Alawites should go to the coffins. Those are all recorded and registered demonstrations, all documented on video. So, and those people were given weapons in Syria. That's the thing. And this type of mentality, people, which exists in every society, by the way, they are psychopaths in every country. And if you calculate the percentage, I would say in every country you have around 3% of the society they suffer from sociopathy and psychopathy. And these people were weapons in Syria by Hillary Clinton, by Obama, and by John Kerry, and all this gang. And today I just posted a video on X, a woman in Syria in what they call the liberated areas from the Assad dictatorship, so which means the opposition-held area supported by the NATO governments. She was beaten to death the video just emerged from Syria. And this happens all the time in the areas under the control of what they call the moderate rebels, what they call the democratic rebels, right? They mistreat women horribly, and they consider a woman as an accessory, and if she misbehaves, they beat her up to death. There's so many cases, videos that I documented. They shoot a woman in her head in Idlib, for example, because they accuse her of adultery. A woman has to be only accused, not proven, only accused, and she would get killed. And all this is happening in the areas that the NATO countries send weapons, ammunition, logistical support, intelligence support, with billions of dollars. I will give you a context. In Ukraine, they sent around $130 billion of military aid in the past 2 years. And now there is the new package, right? In Ukraine's size is probably how many times? 5, 6, 7 times bigger than Syria, right?
Yeah.
Syria is a very smaller country compared to Ukraine. But in Syria, the amount of military aid that they pumped in the country through Saudi Arabia, through Qatar, through Turkey, and other regional countries, Israel was giving them cash money. The United States, it was above $200 billion.
Wow.
They gave these type of people in Syria. You remember the time when ISIS was driving the pickup trucks, the
Yes.
Toyotas? It's like,
Yes.
how did they get all these
Turkey,
Toyotas?
right?
Yeah, of course. It's from Turkey. It's from the black market. And why ISIS was able to expand in Syria? Because they turned a blind eye to the expansion of ISIS to the oil fields. Once ISIS occupied the oil fields and they started extracting the oil, where did they sell the oil? In Turkey. And who was managing this? It was Bilal, the son of Recep Tayyip Erdogan, right? And Bilal used to take the oil and they refine the oil and they sell it to other markets, including to Israel. So ISIS has become a state, converted itself from an organization to a state because it had a financial independence because they have oil and they sell the oil and they get dollars, right? And when they started getting dollars, they started bringing multinational, what they call jihadists from all around the world. Mm-hmm. And all the Western intelligence apparatuses turned a blind eye for this. The jihadists.
There's a video where John Kerry says we were looking and to see if ISIS could do any damage to Assad or something like that. There's a video of that. I'll play that.
That's actually John Kerry. I think this was in 2015. This was in November 2015. So he sits with Syrian opposition figures in Washington, D.C. You know, they choose and pick who is the Syrian opposition figure. And they,
the Syrian Juan Guaido, right?
Yeah. Like they just promote to us new names every time and then, and they say, this is your Syrian opposition figure. And we're like, who's this guy?
Juan.
We never heard. Yeah, we never heard of this guy. We never seen this woman. And all these people all of a sudden became Syrian opposition figures because it became business.
Yeah.
And it's profitable business. So he was meeting with the Syrian opposition figures in Washington, D.C. And he told them that we were watching the expansion of ISIS. And we thought it's a good idea because then Assad will become under pressure and he will compromise. And he says, but instead of Assad compromising, he got Putin coming to Syria and save him. Because remember, ISIS, when they occupied the desert and they occupied Palmyra, they started advancing to Damascus and they were already in the Yarmouk camp.
Yeah, they were doing a C-shape advance from what I remember.
Yeah. So the United States back then is, if you remember the chronology of the Syrian events, in 2014, they declared the US-led campaign against ISIS, right? And since then, ISIS expanded more in Syria because they were watching the expansion of ISIS and they thought, as Kerry said, it's a good idea because then Assad will compromise. So back then when ISIS was expanding to Damascus and the Russians intervened. So people say, okay, were it not for Russia, were it not for Iran, were it not for Hezbollah, Assad would have fallen, right? This is hypothetical, just an argument. We don't know for sure. But, of course, they helped Assad immensely. And in my opinion, also the Syrian soldiers, were it not for them fighting on the ground against these terror groups, the Russians would not have intervened. The Iranians would not have came for help. And also we have to remember over 100,000 multinational terrorists came in support of these, what is called the Syrian opposition, right? So it's unfair argument, in my opinion, to accuse Assad that he survived only with the help of his allies, because the opposition side received more military and political support than Assad would have dreamed of. The amount of money that the opposition received in Syria exceeds the GDP and the entire budget of Syria in 5 years, right?
Wow.
Yeah, so, and they couldn't because the people in Syria rejected. When I say the people, I mean the majority of the people rejected to support what is called the Syrian revolution. And this is a bitter reality for the pro-revolution people or the anti-Assad people, because their brains are so colonized, and they think from an Orientalist lens to Syria, and they think the Sunnis in Syria were dissatisfied of Assad because Assad is from an Alawite sect, for example. But the experience shown that the majority of the Sunnis were not dissatisfied of Assad, and they didn't rise against him. For example, the city of Aleppo didn't rise against Assad. The city of Damascus didn't rise against Assad. And those are the biggest Sunni blocs in Syria, right? Those who fought against Assad, if we count them in numbers, they were around 120,000 militants. From Syrian background, right? And 120,000 is like 0.05% of the Syrian society, or 0.5%, half percent of the Syrian society, because we are 24 million people. So it doesn't make any sense to me, in my opinion, to say that Assad was some sort of leading a regime that is its pillars are based on sectarian, let's say, foundations, because Syria was a system that is that suppresses political opposition regardless of the religious and let's say sectarian background, and it rewards any let's say person who is in support of the system in Syria, regardless of the religious sect. Religion and sect, in my opinion, doesn't play a role in the political process in Syria, in the decision making in Syria. There are more minorities in the army, but this has a history behind it, and people want us to completely, let's say, erase history and erase why more minorities joined the army. And that is a very important topic if people are interested to know why more Alawites and more Christians and more Jews people are in the army than in the Sunnis. And they have to go back to the era of the French colony. And when the French mandate was over and Syria gained its independence and Syria formed its first national army, nobody wanted to join the army. Nobody wanted to fight in the army back then in the 40s. So the army, the structure of the army was based on a more socialist system, that if you joined the army, you would get incentives. For example, you would get more deduction on the food, on the fuel, in education, healthcare, etc. So who would join the army back then? Poorer, exactly. And the more poorer people in Syria were from those who used to live in the mountains, those who used to live in the towns, and those are mostly the Alawites and the Christians. So they joined the army. And back then, the Sunnis were very, the rich people mostly were from the Sunnis. And they said, we are the bourgeoisie people, and why would we join the army, right? And they used to call it the army of the sandals. This is an expression that from the 40s, they used to call it the army of the sandals, which means the army of the poor people. And till today, they still call the Syrian army the army of the sandals. And this is a 70-year-old expression. They use it since then. The first, the person who was, for example, in charge of the artilleries of the Syrian army in the 48, when the war erupted between Israel and Syria, it was Armenian. Right, and people, those are information, in my opinion, most of the people do not know.
No.
And I myself, I get so much hate for being an Armenian. I have an Armenian name, an Armenian surname, and the most expression that I received since the eruption of the Syrian regime change war from the anti-Assad people is that, why do you speak in the name of the Syrians? You are an Armenian. Go back to Armenia. You're a refugee here. They say, we made you a human being. When you arrived, you had bare foot. You didn't have shoes on your foot. We gave you food. We gave you medicine, and now you oppose us. And that's completely utter nonsense, because the Armenians were present in Syria before the Armenian genocide. Most of them, they don't know this. And secondly, when the Armenians arrived after the genocide, or most of them when they arrived, the people who embraced them, they were from different sectors of the Syrian society, and those who were not sympathetic with the Ottoman Empire. The people who saved my grandparents were Syrians with a Kurdish background, with Sunni background, with Alevi background, because they didn't have good sentiments toward the Ottoman Empire, and they wanted to save us. But now, the people who rose against Assad, the vast majority of them, they are in favor of Erdogan. And those who are in Erdogan, he says, I'm a neo-Ottoman, right? So we didn't betray our history. We didn't betray their ancestors, those who saved us. But those who betrayed their ancestors are the ones who allied themselves nowadays with their former colonizers, for example, the Ottomans, or the neo-Ottomans. And secondly, with the colonizers, with the French, with the Brits, with the Americans. We were the ones who opposed these regime change war. As I told you, I was one of the people who believed that this is about democracy, human rights, but I changed my mind because the facts were completely opposite of the allegations in the press, in my opinion.
So now, you said that your brother, you had a pretty bad experience with the quote unquote moderate rebels as your brother was kidnapped. Can you tell more about that?
Yeah, actually, this was in 2012. In 2012, they were trying to bring Aleppo into what is called the Syrian Spring. And in Aleppo city, there were no demonstrations against the government. The people were like, we don't want to, we have our businesses, we have our jobs. Assad has taken care of Aleppo immensely. He constructed many industrial cities. Tens of thousands of people found new jobs, whether you're educated or not. Everybody was working. And anyone with anyone with two functioning brain cells in Syria in 2011, 2010 could have made 50,000 Syrian lira. And 50,000 Syrian lira is, in 2010, it's $1,000. And $1,000 in Syria, it was a very, very good money in the year 2010. My father, for example, I remember that he is a below middle class businessman and he used to make, let's say, around $2,000 per month. And we were a family of four. We used to live a very good life. We had an apartment in our name. It's private. And we used to do every year go to tourism and vacation. And we had a car. And I was studying in a private university. My brother was studying in a public university. My mother used to go to shopping. Like $2,000 nowadays is nothing, right? In the United States, in Europe, for 2,000 euro here,
like rent, basically.
Yeah, basically. In Syria was so much cheaper, and the situation. So the Aleppo people didn't want to join the revolution. What happened is the Turkish side, they bought the head of the military intelligence unit in Aleppo. So the guy betrayed his country and he changed the checkpoints on the entrances of the city. And it was in coordination, of course, with the rebels, what they call the rebels. And in June 2012, these so-called rebels, they attacked the city and all the checkpoints were removed. There were no checkpoints because he opened the way for them and he escaped to Turkey. And while he was escaping to Turkey, he was murdered on the borders. The Turks killed him on the borders. He was collaborating with the Turkish side, and once he arrived to the border, to pass the border to Turkey, they killed him.
That sounds like the story of the scorpion.
Yeah, see? Those are the people who betrayed Syria, and he was killed by the people that thought that they will embrace him in Turkey. Anyways, so all of a sudden we woke up that in the mid of 2012, half the city, eastern parts of Aleppo, were occupied by groups, they call it Free Syrian Army, Jaish Fatah, Jaish Tahrir, Jaish whatever, like there were so many names, right? And one of these groups, which was directly supported by the CIA, directly supported, armed, trained, and given money to, this group was headed by, what was his name? I forgot, Hayyan something. And this group, they captured my brother while he was driving a car. And all of a sudden, they attacked his car, and they sit in the car with the guns, and they kidnapped him, and they took him to a town called Haretan. Haretan is in northern Aleppo. So there they called my father, and they told him, we have your son with us, and you guys are Christians, and you guys are very rich. They think like, then you're rich, this is their stereotype. And so you guys are rich. If you want to see your son again, you have to pay $20,000 for the head of your son, or we will send the head of your son to your doorstep, like decapitated. And my father told them, he said, what do you want? You want $20,000 for my son? He said, look, I have 4 other sons, and he doesn't have 4 other sons. It's me and but he lied. He said, I have 4 other sons. Keep my son with you. Feed him. Let him drink and sleep in your place, because in these circumstances, the businesses have stopped. We are not making any money. So I don't have money to feed him anyway. So keep him with you. And I don't want him. And he just picked off turned off the phone to their face. And these people were very angry, and they started torturing my brother, telling him that your father is mocking us, this and that, and you Christian filth, this and that. And but the thing was that we didn't know that when he was captured, he was captured with his girlfriend. We didn't know that. They didn't tell us that. So when we learned that there is a woman with him, it was completely different when there is a woman in the scene, right?
Yeah.
So the family of the girl called us. They were panicking, and we had no choice but to negotiate with them. And we negotiated for $12,000 for both of them. And my father went in the north in this town, driving his cousin's car. And once he entered the town, they were like armed to teeth, all these, what they call these so-called rebels. And they interrogated him, and they knew that they were expecting him, and they took him to some dark places. They took him out of the car, and they took the money. They counted everything in the money, and then they told him to wait there for 30 minutes. And they brought my brother and the girl completely like on a what they call, they put a bag on their head, and they pushed them on the floor. And my father took them, and he came back to Aleppo, but they kept the car. So they took $12,000 and also took the car. The car used to cost like $30,000 back then too. So they took like $42,000 from us to liberate, to give us back my brother and and his, let's say back then his girlfriend. It was very terrifying, because I didn't know if my father would come back, because if he goes there to give them money, what would happen if you give them the money and they kill them all? Nothing, right? Yeah, we don't know. And they have done this, and they have done this, but we had no other choice. It's either they all come back now, or nobody comes back. It was a very, very, I would say, tense situation. And unfortunately, I was not in Aleppo back then. I was in Beirut studying. I was in my master's degree. And I was on the Skype like for hours and hours and hours waiting for what is going to happen next. Yeah, all these experiences just show that it was a gangster style of a movement. It wasn't any organic movement, democratic movement, respecting the people's private lives and private properties. They were taking over the people's properties and using it as theirs. Once they come, it's theirs. And this week, I don't know if you saw, I organized a crowdfunding for a family.
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, they were kicked out of their apartment in Raqqa by these so-called rebels. And they were given a paper written on it that you, the Christian filth of this city, we purge the city from the filth. So you have to leave this country. You have 48 hours to leave, or you would get killed, and they will take over your apartment. And they escaped to Aleppo. And people are in a miserable situation. And once you lose your apartment, you lose your income, you're in a new city. It's not easy to restart your life. So we managed now $2,000 or so. And their cousin also, he has another $2,000 there, something. So they will buy a car and they will start working on a taxi to generate income. Let's see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is, I'm speechless because that is like horrific. And you don't hear about these reports in the West because it's just not convenient to show who the West is funding and what kind of people they are.
No.
So for me, the one thing I noticed is that every year Assad and his wife always go to the mass for Christmas, but in these areas controlled by moderate rebels, there's no Christmas. So you can see that they are definitely Salafists and jihadists who want it to be something like Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, actually, it's what they say is completely it's a big utter lie, about Assad and his wife. They say, for example, oh, he's going to the church, he's celebrating Christmas, he is one of them, he's a minority, this and that. Their minds are very colonized and their minds are very full of sectarian hatred. Assad goes to every Muslim occasion, to the mosque. Mm-hmm. In every occasion, small or big, he goes to the mosque. He celebrates with the people. He congratulates everyone for whether through Telegram, whether through video, whether personally going to the mosque in every occasion.
Yeah, I've seen that too.
Yeah, but once he goes to a church and he wants to celebrate Christmas time with the Christians, then they make a big fuss out of it. They say, look, these minorities have occupied Syria. And yeah, these people are really radical. In Syria, all religions and sects have the right to practice their rituals freely, even the Jewish people. And this is an information I will give to you. Recently, there were visits by the Jewish Syrian community who live in Brooklyn to Syria, multiple visits. And this was encouraged by the Syrian government. The Syrian government encouraged them to come back and visit their properties and check on their properties, their cathedrals and their places. Those are important cultural sites. It has its civilizational value, right? But they were all neglected because most of them left Syria between the creation of Israel and 1990s during these peace talks. There was a big encouragement for the Jewish people to leave the neighboring countries of Israel, whether go to Israel or to the United States. There were so many incentives to them to leave, right? In Syria, they were not persecuted. Mm-hmm. And up until this moment, they are not persecuted. And recently, a very good friend of mine, he's a Syrian, from a Syrian Jewish community. He's basically based in Brooklyn, but he comes and goes to Syria all the time. And he asked for my help to reopen one of the cathedrals in Damascus. And I had some contacts with friends and colleagues. In Syria we say, if you ask, you will not miss any information. Mm-hmm. So you just ask this person and that person. And we found few people who could help him. Mm-hmm. And they gave him the keys. He went and he cleaned the cathedral from inside and the cultural sites of the Jewish people in Damascus. And he was so happy wearing the kippah and walking in the streets of Damascus. And he says, the Jewish people are safer now in Syria than in Israel, right? It's ironic, but it's true. It's ironic, but it's true, because the Jewish people, just like any other people in Syria, they're part of the Syrian people. But the opposition to Israel is that they want to keep it an ethno-religious state, mm-hmm. and a state only for the Jewish people at the expense of the indigenous people. Mm-hmm. The problem with them is ideological. The problem with them is political. It's not religious. But Israel only thrives and can survive and expand on the factor of fear. Like they hate us because we are Jewish. They hate us. They want to throw us in the sea, in the Mediterranean. So we have to defend ourselves. That's the only way that the Israeli politicians can sell the continuous oppression, occupation, subjugation of the Palestinian people. But the Jewish people in Syria, Who cares if you're wearing a kippah and walking in the street? Nobody cares. If you're wearing a big cross on your chest and walking in the street, nobody cares. If you're wearing a mini jupe as a woman and walking in the street, yeah, there are some of the places are more conservative, and we know that we do not really go there wearing, let's say, more revealed. But in the bigger cities, in Damascus, for example, Aleppo, the city of Homs, you want to wear a burqa? Welcome. You want to wear a mini jupe? You're welcome. It's just a multicultural,
So was Aleppo ever occupied by the moderate rebels?
Half of the city was occupied, yes.
How did your family survive that?
It is very, very tough. In Aleppo, there was a big siege on the city, and the siege was from the rebels. They sieged the city, they starved the people, they cut the bread, they cut the milk, they cut the meat, they cut the vegetables. There were banners so when they occupied the city and they blocked the suburbs of Aleppo completely, the city was encircled. The western Aleppo was encircled. The people there were in the mercy of the rebels. So if the rebels allow some gas, some food to come inside, then they could survive. So the government started dropping from the helicopters bread and some of the basic necessities because they were starving, basically, right? So what happened is when they sieged the city, they opened one border crossing, they even made a border between the east and the west, and they put a big banner. First of all, they blocked between the east and the west with buses, the transportation buses. They were like bus above a bus, so they just blocked, they made a border. And it's written on these buses, it's not allowed to take any sort of milk, food, baby products, vegetables, oil, etc., to the western side. So complete food blockade on the people in the west of Aleppo. And later, what they did, when the Syrian government in 2016, in December 2016, with the support of Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah, liberated the city completely. They liberated the people, basically, right? And they called it the genocide. And there was zero genocide. There was none. There was nothing. They made up allegations that the women are throwing themselves from the balconies because the Assad regime is now coming to rape them and this and that. None of this happened. Zero. Right? And when the people were liberated, people were given a choice. You can stay in Aleppo and we will reconstruct these areas, we'll provide you with the basic necessities. If you dislike the Syrian government to the extent that you cannot coexist with us again, we put you in the buses, you go to the city of Idlib with your friends and your colleagues there, which is the largest safe haven for Al-Qaeda terrorists in the world. And in the eastern part of Aleppo, where these rebels were occupying, there were around 200,000 people, I believe.
Wow.
And 200,000 people, those who were living in the opposition side, right? Of the 200,000 people, how many people do you think have chosen to go to Idlib? Just take a guess. 200. It's a little bit more than that. It's like 5,000 people have chosen to go to Idlib. So the vast majority, 99% of them have chosen to stay with the Syrian government because the Syrian government doesn't act on vengeance. They act as a state. There is something called the state logic. And there were so many people who carried arms. They killed Syrian soldiers. They were on video killing people, etc. The government pardoned them. And there was a presidential decree after decree called presidential pardon for these people. Just in exchange for please lay down your arms. If you lay down your arms, we erase everything that happened in the past. No other government does this. Come on. And they call it like the Syrian government has so many stupid mistakes.
No, I remember them doing that in 2014 too, where they offered a pardon for anyone who has laid down their arms.
Yeah, I mean, the Syrian government has done horrible mistakes. For example, they have subjugated the communists, for example, but there were reasons for that. Like in their mentality was like, look, during the Soviet era, we want to be an ally of the Soviet Union, but we don't want to become a Soviet Union, right? This was the thing. Like we always want to draw a line between us and the Soviet Union. We are a socialist country, but we don't want to become a communist country. We don't want to become like the Soviet Union. We are an ally of Iran, but we don't want for Iran to have an extreme influence in the country. So they were playing on these contradictions. So in the process of playing on the contradictions, yes, they suppressed the Communist Party, for example. They put some people in jail for political reasons. I totally am against that. I call for the freedom and the release of every political prisoner in Syria. But I am for wholeheartedly in the fight of the government in the existential threat that the NATO countries imposed on us as a country, as a civilization, against these radicals. So in the process of fighting against these radicals, who is fighting? Who is doing your fight? It's Assad, right? If Assad left the country in 2011, I would have called him a traitor.
Absolutely. I mean, look at what happened to Egypt after Hosni Mubarak. I mean, there was a color revolution, and then they had a mass IMF privatization scheme. The food prices, everything went downhill. So you're absolutely, and Yanukovych. Look at what happened when he left in Ukraine.
Yes. I mean, those people I do not respect, for example, Yanukovych. His name was Yanukovych, right?
Yeah.
I do not respect him because he shouldn't have left his country. I respect Gaddafi. Gaddafi was a leader and he died in his country. Like Saddam Hussein in Syria, we were enemies with Saddam Hussein. We used to curse Saddam Hussein day and night. In our breakfast, we used to curse Saddam Hussein. We didn't like Saddam Hussein for his horrible mistakes that he did in the past. But when the invasion happened, everyone in Syria was with Iraq. And when Saddam Hussein, when I watched the video of Saddam Hussein hanging him, I cried. I cried because he, despite all the reservations, he died for his country and he didn't escape. He had the chance to escape. The same thing for Assad. Look, Assad and his wife, they were offered offer after offer to leave the country by Qatar, by Saudi Arabia. They were telling them, we give you billions. How much money do you want? We are going to spend this money anyways in Syria to remove you. We give you all this money. Go and live in Russia. Go and live in Iran. Go and live in China. Go live anywhere. You're safe. And they refused. And I respect that. I salute them for staying and fighting for the people. I know that this fight was so bloody and 500,000 people died. But in my opinion, if Assad was overthrown through this military operation, the covert operation that the CIA waged against Syria, Syria would have been divided into ethnic and sectarian lines. They are trying to do it still until this moment. But the obstacle is Assad. Right? The obstacle is Assad for them. Syria would have become a complete puppet country for the United States. The second day, Syria would have abandoned all the anti-Israeli militant groups in the region, either be Hamas or Jihad or Hezbollah. Syria would have become completely pro-American, pro-Israeli, because the people who were carrying the fight are pro-Israeli and pro-American. And they were getting medical treatment in Israel.
Yep.
Right?
I read that where many moderate rebels were brought over the border for medical treatment and sent back into the battlefield.
Of course. And those were also included the Al-Qaeda fighters. And the former head of Mossad was asked by Mehdi Hassan. I mean, I really don't like Mehdi Hassan, but this is one of...
following me on Twitter.
Yeah, I really don't like him, but this was one of the epic interviews that he conducted. And he was like asking the former head of the Mossad, like, do you guys aren't worried of something called blowback? You're receiving an Al-Qaeda wounded fighters and giving them medical treatments? And he says, no, we're not worried of a blowback because he says, so this is a tactical reason. No, he says, it is only for humanitarian reasons. We're just receiving them, giving them aid, and we're sending them back to Syria. So pure humanitarian, he says, yes. So what about Hezbollah? He asks him. If a Hezbollah fighter is wounded, do you receive them and give them medical aid? He says, no, we don't give medical aid to Hezbollah. So why do you don't give medical aid to Hezbollah? You just said it's about humanitarian reasons, right? He said, no. with Hezbollah, we have a different account, because with Hezbollah has waged a type of warfare against us that is, we will never forgive them. But he says, in my memory, Al-Qaeda never attacked Israel previously. So that's true.
So that brings a lot of questions about Al-Qaeda and Israel and their relationship.
Of course, I mean, Al-Qaeda is a contract army for the CIA. I mean, Michael Hudson, the famous professor, he explained this very clearly. And I was one of the people who, I was hesitant to say this in loud, because you will be called a conspiracy theorist.
Like in the Obama era, General Petraeus said, in Syria, Al-Qaeda is our ally.
Yeah. Actually,
under oath.
Thanks for WikiLeaks. We also know that the current national security advisor, Jake Sullivan, when he was the advisor for Hillary Clinton in 2012, he sent her an email to his boss telling her that Al-Qaeda is on our side in Syria. And in 2012, the Defense Intelligence Agency of the United States, they submitted a report to Obama telling him that the driving force behind the revolution in Syria are Al-Qaeda linked groups. And he completely turned a blind eye, knew it. And recently, the former special envoy to Syria, a special American envoy to Syria, he said Al-Qaeda is an asset for the American strategy in Syria. And this was when they interviewed on the PBS, I think, the PBS with Jolani in 2021 or 2019. They were trying to brand Al-Qaeda to some sort of cute...
Free Syrian army.
Yeah. So that's why that's when his name was Jeffrey something. I always forget names, but yeah. So he said Jolani is an asset for the American strategy in Syria. Al-Qaeda, in my opinion, what happened in Afghanistan in the late 70s and early 80s, in Chechnya, and how to solve...
in Bosnia and Kosovo, it seems like they move whenever U.S. wants to do a war to that location.
And I think the people who are carrying the arms, like the grassroots of the Al-Qaeda, they do know that they are geopolitical idiots for the United States. But the leadership, of course, they know. I mean, the cooperation between ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and in the United States is of the highest level, in my opinion. Look what they did to Iran just a few weeks ago when they blew up during the commemoration of Qasem Soleimani, during the time when the Americans were also escalating against Iran. And 3 weeks later, the Israelis blew up the gas pipeline in Iran. I mean, all these coincidences, they're not coincidences. And every time these ISIS, al-Nusra, Qaeda groups, they only fight against the American enemies in the region. I mean, those are not coincidences. And I think what's happening nowadays in Gaza, right? Where is ISIS and Al-Qaeda? From their, because they claim that they are championing their Muslim brothers in Syria, right? Where are they? I mean, in Syria, they sent tens of thousands of jihadists to fight against the infidel Assad regime. Where are they now from Gaza? Why don't they send, I'm not saying that they have to, because they will tarnish the reputation of the Palestinian cause. But what I mean is, technically, where are they now? Why don't they come for help for their brethren and sisters in the Gaza Strip? Because they are under complete CIA control. The Americans control them, they move them. The ISIS elements, they are active on the periphery of the American and occupation forces in Al-Tanaf border crossing in Syria. Yeah. And they wage attacks on the Syrian army, and they come back and they get protection from the American forces. And once the Syrian army advances and approaches and comes to fight these ISIS elements, they get shot by the American forces. So yeah, everybody knows in Syria on whose side Al-Qaeda is. It's just it's not like some sort of a conspiracy theory. It's a proven fact that the United States supported Al-Qaeda, given them weapons, given them medical support, intelligence support. There are groups like, for example, Jabha Shamia, which is very undemocratic, very Salafist. They call for Islamic Caliphate again in Syria. They received around 90 million euros from the Netherlands.
Wow.
From Mark Rutte's government. And Mark Rutte's government, they labeled this group a terrorist group. Like, they say this group is a terrorist group, and they gave them... Yeah, they gave them 90 million euros, and they called it non-lethal support. So what is the non-lethal support that they gave them? They gave them pickup trucks. They gave them laptops. They gave them communication. Do you think that they were using these pickup trucks for non-lethal reasons, or they were putting a PKCs and guns and arms on them and they were fighting against the Syrian forces? Yeah, they call it non-lethal aid, but they helped the terrorists in Syria. And yeah, that's why, in my opinion, I'm very, very anti-Western foreign policy approach. I'm not anti-West. I don't hate the West. I live in the West. I would love to come one day to the United States and visit the different cities and different parts of the United States. I like the American people. I dislike the foreign policy because I'm a victim of this policy, right? And I don't want other people to become victim as well.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. And one last question. Where do people find you?
Actually, I'm mostly posting daily live streamings on YouTube and Rumble, but I would really more people start moving to Rumble.
Because your video got deleted, right?
Not only me, I mean, so many people's channels were completely demonetized. Recently, Robert in Lakesh, his YouTube channel has been deleted today completely. So I think the suppression on YouTube will get more dystopian soon. Every day I post a live streaming every day. The moment I finish the live streaming, the video gets suppressed and demonetized, and they have to check it manually, like with a microscope, if I said something that they dislike or disagree with, so they keep it demonetized. So I'm moving slowly but surely to Rumble. Syriana Analysis, both on YouTube and Rumble is the same. And on Twitter or X is my personal name, Kevork Almassian. I think those are the main places that they should follow. But I would really appreciate if more people start moving, from migrating, let's say, from YouTube to Rumble, where we still have some periphery for free speech there without getting kicked out of the platform.
I'll put the link in the description box.
Yeah, I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the day. We really appreciate you coming over here.
It was my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
So we're back. I guess I'm the only one back. Welcome back, Janet. I can't hear you though.
I know. I was muted.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, okay. So this leads. He was at the end. He was talking about whose side Al Qaeda, the moderate rebels, the Free Syrian Army, and ISIS were on. And this week, there was an article from the Cradle, and they just said that the Free Syrian Army appointed as its new commander, Colonel Salim Turki al-Antari, who was from Palmyra, and he joined ISIS in 2014, going by the name of Abu Saddam al-Ansari. And so he fought for ISIS for 3 years, and then somehow he came back to the Turkish-backed Syrian National Army in 2017. And then after so he helped the Rojava Kurds to balkanize a part of Syria so that they can take 1/4 of Syria's oil and so on. And then now he is the commander of the Free Syrian Army. So it's kind of just obvious that whose side ISIS is on, whose side the US is on, and so forth.
Yeah.
Proving Kevork's point.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty clear.
Yeah. For me, the most intense part of the interview is how his brother got kidnapped, and they were just.
Yeah, I was just about to say that went really hard. When he's like, "Oh, you want a ransom? You keep the kid. I can't afford to feed him. You do it. Your problem." That is it's horrible, but it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
That's some incredible shit to talk about at a family reunion.
Yeah, I remember when you were kidnapped by Al Qaeda.
And we told them to keep you because you eat too much.
Well, that is, yeah. I mean, some people. I mean, ultimately, in order to survive this, you must have some dark humor.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and like I said, for me, it was very obvious once you saw where Christmas was being celebrated and where Christmas was being banned to see who had the psycho extremists and who didn't.
Yeah, that's a very different headline. Moderate Syrian rebels cancel Christmas.
Yeah, they did that basically. They made it illegal to celebrate Christmas.
It's true, but it wasn't in the news.
No, it was not in the news.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
and this week, the UN ruled that the chemical attack in Masray was actually done by ISIS, which is to no one's surprise.
Yeah. I didn't hear that. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, we already knew it, though.
Oh, no, I knew it, but like, I didn't hear that they claimed it was them.
Well, they investigated it and they realized,
Yeah.
Israel investigated themselves on that little girl Hind's death, and they said that
Yeah.
How did she die?
she was the one with her family in the car.
Yeah, no, I know exactly who she was. She called the ambulance. Her sister called the ambulance, and she was stuck in an ambulance in the middle of some street. And then the line cut. So how did Israel claim she died?
I thought she was shot.
I know she was shot, but you said Israel investigated themselves.
Yeah, they said that there wasn't any soldiers in the area, so it had to be Hamas that shot her.
Okay.
Because
So if there was Hamas, why weren't there any soldiers in that area if they're trying to get rid of Hamas?
I don't know, Esha.
That's a catch.
They know much better than we do.
Exactly.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah. So Ilan Levy, so this week got himself into a conundrum because he said that the Israeli soldiers had to fire at the crowd because they were scared and terrorists were coming near them. But then he claimed it was blood libel to claim that Israeli soldiers shot at the crowd, even though he admitted that in his tweet earlier.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ilan Levy, this week, George Galloway and the Workers' Party of Britain won Rochdale, which is a very boring name for a British district, in a special election for MP.
Yes. Do you want to play the Sunak clip?
Yeah, no, let's play Galloway first.
Oh, okay. Let me grab that then.
Because we just talked about Ilan Levy.
All right, so we'll play the this clip first.
Mm-hmm. While she's waiting, please be sure to super chat us money and hit the heart and give us some money if you can. Okay, let's play.
All right, let me start it from the beginning.
You said we. Are you an Israeli?
I am, yes.
I don't debate with Israelis. I've been misled. Sorry.
Racism.
I don't recognize Israel and I don't debate with Israelis.
I said in a debate that I would not debate with a Pakistani. I would rightly be called a racist. My question for you is, are you a racist?
I'm one of the few people on the left in Britain who traveled the length and breadth of apartheid South Africa as an underground agent of the African National Congress led by Nelson Mandela, then in Pollsmoor prison in Cape Town. Therefore, the subject of apartheid is particularly important to me. The question of racism is particularly important to me. And in parenthesis, let me tell you this, that throughout the entirety of my time underground in South Africa under apartheid, every house I slept in, every dinner I ate, every car I drove in was provided by Jewish activists of the African National Congress. So Jews don't have to be on the side of apartheid. They don't have to be on the side of racism. Jewish heroes amongst my blood brotherhood, like Dennis Goldberg, who served 27 years on Robben Island in Pollsmoor prison, but who never was able to touch Mandela and his comrades because they were on one side of the apartheid prison wall, and he and a few other Jewish heroes of the African National Congress were on the other Dennis Goldberg, Albie Sachs, Joe Slovo, Ruth First. Perhaps you've heard of these people. If you haven't, look them up. But because of my experience in South Africa, because of the decades that I worked against apartheid in South Africa, do you imagine that I would turn up at a university and debate apartheid with a supporter from South Africa of the apartheid system? I'd rather punch him in the face than debate with him. Why? Because apartheid is a racist poison, and I would never debate with any supporter of South African apartheid. Why should I debate with a supporter of Israeli apartheid?
So yeah, that was a pretty good answer. I like the fact that he just up and left Ilan Levy, who was then like left to do nothing but whine for the whole day.
That's all it is anyway.
Someone in the audience goes, he's walking out.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably what you should do with, you should never stage with Ilan Levy. Oh my God, Jon Stewart had this really gross segment this week where he had, what's his name? He works for The Intercept. He's Pakistani and he's like very, what's his name? Murtaza Hussain. And Yair Goldberg, like, and so you have why are you having a Pakistani dude debate Palestine?
Yeah.
And then there's Yair Goldberg. And so you have a mealy-mouthed, kind of sucky Pakistani dude debating Israeli apartheid when has never experienced it, never been to Israel or Palestine, never, and it was just a very gross liberal fest, is what I thought.
Daryl from the comment section, first he's saying, I don't know if you saw the big one, he's saying what George Galloway did was cool, though Palestine should not follow the South African example. The ANC is awesome, but Palestine should not make this an anti-apartheid struggle.
I agree. Because apartheid was broken, but it didn't break the economic inequality, and there's still a lot. No, and Nelson Mandela also in around 1994, he promised not to implement Marxism-Leninism in South Africa, and that was probably a big mistake. And so he kind of turned his back on his original roots in many ways. And the ANC turned into just another liberal party.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah.
By the way, we'll be getting actually. Okay. So I'll just break this to you. But there's a guy named Tom Mujica, and he was actually an anti-apartheid. He was one of the rare Afrikaans anti-apartheid fighters. So he was in what we call the Torch Commando. And so he's going to interview with us in this week about that.
Nice.
Yeah. But whenever I read his tweets, I'm always like reading it in a good Afrikaans accent. His tweets only work well that way.
I follow a guy. I think he's Afrikaans, and but he's he was on the side against apartheid, so he talks about it on TikTok, and I love that accent too.
Yeah.
So, you want me to play Sunak?
Sure. Oh, okay. So the really funny. Okay, first listen to his speech, and then I'll tell you the funny part.
Okay.
This is in reaction to George Galloway getting elected.
In recent weeks and months, we have seen a shocking increase in extremist disruption and criminality. What started as protests on our streets has descended into intimidation, threats, and planned acts of violence.
What is he talking
Jewish
about?
children fearful to wear their school uniform lest it reveal their identity. Muslim women abused in the street for the actions of a terrorist group they have no connection with. And it is beyond alarming that last night the Rochdale by-election returned a candidate who dismisses the horror of what happened on October the 7th, who glorifies Hezbollah and is endorsed by Nick Griffin, the racist former leader of the BNP. Yes, you can march and protest with passion. You can demand the protection of civilian life. But no, You cannot call for violent jihad. You can freely criticize the actions of this government, or indeed any government. That is a fundamental democratic right. But no, you cannot use that as an excuse to call for the eradication of a state or any kind of hatred or anti-Semitism. This week, I've met with senior police officers and made clear it is the public's expectation that they will not merely manage these protests, but police them. And I say this to the police: we will back you when you take action.
Okay, so what the hell? Okay, so now let's look at the parliamentary record of this speech.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was sitting down on the job. Give me 1 second. Talk for 1 second.
Okay, so first of all, Rishi Sunak is an embarrassment. Actually, you know that his wife. Okay, she is his wife is a resident of Bangalore, as in she doesn't even live in the UK.
Nice.
Yeah. So he has no business talking about being British or whatever. Like I said, his wife, for tax purposes, she claimed that she was a resident of Bangalore.
I don't know why it's not coming up right.
Here, I'll send it to you again.
No, I have it. It's just doesn't come up right to pull here. I just have to get out and do it again.
Okay. And what else can we say? Oh yeah. So he's been having a meltdown because apparently people are protesting him wherever he walks, but he deserves that for being like the brown face of the empire. I have no sympathy.
I know why it wasn't going to come up, because I didn't have the right thing pulled up.
Okay.
It's one of those days.
Okay. So, no, wrong thing. It's just this. I just sent you a. Yes, that's the one. Okay. So if you look at the transcript, notice that he redacted him like dissing George Galloway, which is so weird. Why would he redact that in the parliamentary records?
Yep.
And any ideas? Well, okay. Mostly because George Galloway didn't actually call for any state to redact. He made my same argument where I say every state has the same right to exist as the DDR. He said, like the Soviet Union didn't have the right to exist. Czechoslovakia didn't have the right to exist. Neither does Israel.
Yep. That's true.
Yeah.
You can say that one state has no right to exist, and
then bring back the DDR.
Yeah, then you can't say it about another one. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with the DDR and all the Eastern Bloc, they were done. They were destroyed against the will of their people. So bring that back. All of them.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's just. I mean, Galloway is really, really good on the foreign policy stuff. Against all this stuff that's happening and stuff. But
then his domestic platform is let's bring back Primark to Roxdale.
Yeah, whatever. But I mean, yeah, he's really good on that stuff, and just watching him just walk out of that room is was just amazing, because that's what I'm saying. Like we can't. You're not changing these people's minds. So at this point, it's not even worth even talking to them.
No, it's worth trolling them and mocking them.
Yeah, I mean a troll. Yeah, but I mean, don't like getting into
serious debates. No way.
Or thinking like why like that whole thing with Norman Finkelstein, like it's always like, oh, you're gonna like he goes in on these debates and it's like you're not gonna change those people's minds. But I mean,
and he has a PhD and he's written like 10 books and he's debating this guy on who's like does anyone in LA have amphetamines for me on Twitter?
Oh, did you know that?
I'm sympathetic to the cause there. So
okay, but it's Destiny.
Destiny is a Gusano. I didn't.
Oh yeah, his mom had a sugar plantation.
I did not know that.
No,
Exactly.
his grandfather had the sugar plantation. His mother was about 5 when they came over,
Aw,
or
poor.
he was about 5, something like that.
No, no, his mother had to be
He's
5
older
because
than he
he's about
seems.
like somewhere between 35 and 40, maybe.
I have no idea. He's a lot older than anybody in his field should be. I know that
Yes.
much.
What is his field? He was
Being
a
a white
gamer,
dude,
right?
bro, on stream, basically.
Being a white dude on the street.
He does
Okay,
what
white
Rush
dude bro on
does.
stream.
It's the same job.
Yeah. So he skims the first line of every Wikipedia article on every
Yeah,
topic.
basically, yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you're not like it's. I don't know, for the average person, it's not worth us trying. You're not.
No, well, my stance
Anything.
on every debate is, why would I debate you? I'm right. I don't care what the topic is. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, but
Why
Matt,
would I debate you? I'm right.
You would be good at debating because you talk. You can talk really fast and you can talk really loud. So
Yeah. We should organize a debate with you with Ben
Yeah.
Shapiro.
Well, I actually, there was a trend going around that was like measuring like the depth of voice, and like mine was hanging around, I shit you not, 69 hertz.
Okay. That's a good depth of voice.
That
so
is
I found
3 notes below the bottom of the bass octave.
3 notes below the bottom of the bass octave. Okay.
Yeah. Oh no, 3 semitones. So like the bottom of the bass octave is E1. That's C.
Oh, thank you. Oh my God. Alexander Mehta Pistrito said maybe plantation is. Can you please show that because he super chatted us? Thank you. That's a good one.
That's awesome.
Yes, Destiny is somebody. Oh, he also said something like about how much he likes genocide too.
Yeah.
He said something like, I don't know if it was for Palestine or a different genocide that's going on right now, but he said he's a supporter of genocide for something.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I vaguely remember that. There was that thing I put together a while when he was like trying to like explain how there's no like quote unquote no good answer to like the solution to the Israeli-Palestine conflict or something. Like, yeah, there's a great answer. Go back to Poland. It's real simple.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous.
Oh, I mean, there's many good. Like it's really really stupid. So then did we have anything else, or we can freebase for a little while for leisure? How about that?
We're not freebasing. This is freestyling. Freebasing is a very different thing.
Oh, what's the difference?
Well, freebasing is when you cook cocaine or heroin on a spoon and then shoot it into your veins.
No, we won't freebase.
we're not doing that.
We're gonna shoot it into people's veins.
Yeah, that's a different show.
Okay, so we are freestyling.
Vamping is the vaudeville term.
No freebase.
Okay. What do we want to talk about? Okay, so well, I now know what freebasing means, and it's not the same what I thought it meant.
Yeah, nope. That's awesome. Have you been saying that like your whole life?
Yeah, probably.
That's like it was a while ago that guy for Mountain Chen or whatever, Southern dude from the CPUSA was talking about how he got to do a argument with Rainer Shea, and he was referring over like the validity of the CPUSA basically, and as he worded it, he I think in his head he meant like he rhetorically bitch slapped Rainer, but he said repeatedly over a series of several tweets that he clapped Rainer's cheeks, which is not what that means, like at all. Like, very, very different thing, and he would not shut up about it for like seriously, like 6-7 tweets. Like the dude was like in like meltdown mode, but like thinking he won. Like.
Okay.
One of the funniest things, like I lost all the screenshots when my phone died, but it was like,
oh my God.
What happened?
I lost my American phone too.
Yeah, it's fun.
I'm sad.
She's
Well, I
like,
mean, at least now you won't like accidentally wake up to like a $5,000 phone bill because like you ass dialed someone. That happened to a friend of mine.
Okay, no. I've like turned off like dialing, but I needed it for password verification so I could get texts. But now, like basically, my dad gets these texts because he installed another SIM code, and then I have to wait until my dad's awake before logging on to anything.
Oh yeah,
And then he has to figure out, I got a text. But then the SIM code is all the text code is already late.
Yeah.
And then I have to explain to him, stay right there, just look at the phone, and the minute you see the text, forward it to me. And then he will then call me and says, the code is 5231. And then it's late again. So then we have to try. And then I'm like, okay, stay on the line. You're going to receive a code third time. Just say what it is immediately, and then I'll get it.
That's impressive. Yeah, no, ever since I like ended up like de facto on your family plan, I get like crazy calls from Connecticut. Like so many. I have no idea who it is because I was born after 1988, so I'd rather pick up a live grenade than a ringing phone. Like, that's just the way it is. But like all the
George Galloway said that Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer were two cheeks of the same backside, and he spanked them both in his victory speech.
Yes, he did say that.
Cheeks.
He did say that in his victory speech. Absolutely.
What's with all his clapping cheeks, man?
Yeah. I mean, Keir Starmer has turned them into like complete Blairites. He's just awful. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. There's like no words. Oh, by the way, Keir Starmer was the special prosecutor for trying to like cook up a fake case against Assange in Sweden that just immediately fell apart in 2014. He was the Crown prosecutor back then.
Wow. Yeah. Now he's like the head of like the lamest version of the Thermidor reaction possible.
Yeah.
Like they've been like on like one hand, like I mean, at least that like Corbyn was as quote unquote legit as a Western social democrat can be, because like in response to him almost doing well, like they hollowed out the entire Labour Party and replaced them with ultra Tories. It's really kind of wild.
I know. Like I was reading the Labour leaks. It was infuriating, and I'm like, and then you understand why there needs to be purges in some parties.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like when you read the Labour leaks, and then you'll understand everything you need to about purges in any other country and why that's necessary.
What happened with Assange? Only because I was not feeling good this.
Oh, okay. So basically, they made the arguments. The U.S. prosecutor didn't really have an argument because they can't. Okay, so UK can't extradite to a country that where the person is eligible for death penalty, and the crime that they've charged Assange.
They also cited the condition of U.S. prisons as a reason to not extradite Assange.
Okay. Yeah, yes. But the most basic thing is that the UK can't extradite if the crime is a death penalty crime. So
yeah, they were asking the question, right? You showed me that they asked.
The U.S. prosecutor was like hemming and hawing and like saying that this is very rare to give the blah blah blah, but she could not say he will not get the death penalty. So they should have dismissed the case right out of hand at that point. But then they let her continue with like some sort of like lies and about and more hemming and hawing. And then they took a recess and they said they need to deliberate and they're going to rule. And that could be 6 months from now, 9 months from now, a year from now, whenever. So they're just buying for more time because there is no act. I mean, in this case, the law is black and white in the UK.
Right.
I don't get it at this point because it's not like what damage is he gonna do if he's out now? Like
it's a
deterrent.
The U.S. wants their limited hangout back, basically. Like Assange grew up in an MK Ultra cult.
Yes, he did grow up in a strange cult in Australia.
And it was a U.S. government project. WikiLeaks is a U.S. friendly, quote unquote, anti-imperial operation. Their focus from the outset in their mission statement was always China, Russia, and various West Asian countries, not the U.S. The only time it suddenly got bad is when the U.S. wanted out of Iraq. So the collateral murder video like suddenly leaked at that point. That's like one of like the first like major anti-U.S. specific leaks that like WikiLeaks ever really did.
But then they did the diplomatic cables. That was a big mess for everyone.
Right.
So especially hurt the US.
So there's like some like debate and contention here over like whether or not like this is all like really performance or if Assange like went rogue in some way.
No, he definitely went rogue in some way because
he's not I don't really look at him like much differently from like Eric Snowden. Like when Assange comes up, like my attitude is like basically daring the US to like kill their like little poster boy, like basically for acceptable espionage that they built.
I disagree with Matt on this because WikiLeaks Snowden is definitely like Intercept actually, oh my god, they took all the Snowden leaks and then they privatized it and didn't release anything. But WikiLeaks, they were more authentic in that they released everything that could be authenticated and they got a lot of sources. So I disagree with you on that he was a limited hangout. No, he was not. And I think you're a little bit conspiratorial on the collateral murder because the U.S. had already gotten out of Iraq when the collateral murder thing came out.
The U.S. still has mercenaries in Iraq.
Yeah, U.S. has mercenaries everywhere. That's not the point.
They wanted the military operation out, and they wanted to keep it out. Like that was the point.
What?
Like that was the point. It was an op to basically fully turn opinion on the war. No,
but the U.S. had already signed the SOFA agreement, and it was 3 years after the fact. I don't. Do you have hard evidence?
We have to do another stream on this at some point.
Okay, because do you have hard evidence, or is this speculation?
I can put together like a paper trail on it right now. I just wasn't
and then we'll have another stream on
randomly.
this.
Sid Nanda is asking, didn't they start going after him after the Hillary email leaks? But I think
no, not the Hillary email. They went after him after the diplomatic cables.
Yeah, that was when I saw it.
Yeah. The diplomatic cables were really basically it showed the State Department acting psychotic, like with the Evo Morales, they were like basically saying, "Oh my God, he's gonna have a constitution without having a USAID rep like at the Constitutional Convention. How dare he?" And psychotic things like that. With Lukashenko, it's really funny. Like their examples of him being dictatorial was like not enforcing creditors' rights and making banks pay people on time.
Yeah.
So at that point, the U.S. started going after him because the diplomatic cables was like a really, really embarrassing. So the diplomatic cables was released on almost every country, but it made the U.S. look the worst.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, there might be a case that like he did go rogue in some capacity, but for the bulk of his operational career, he was a U.S. intelligence asset. That's not really like
I don't believe he was a conscious intelligence.
No. He hacked the Pentagon when he was a kid, and
he cut it.
No, it's incredibly possible, and that's why it's embarrassing. Like cybersecurity is not what people think it is. Okay. When he was a kid, like he was in like these hacking basically what happened to him was what happened to the anonymous lulz sec crew.
Oh no, the anonymous has always been like the FBI, CIA.
But he was like we're talking about like the Project Zero. Like
I lived through the 80s, so there was like the end of the 80s, like there was those hacking groups and stuff like that before anonymous.
Like Assange growing up was like basically like what war games was incredibly loosely based on.
Yeah.
Okay, but so he was part of this weird cult in Australia. I remember that.
Yeah, that's why his hair turned white, apparently.
No, his hair had always been that color.
No, he used to have brown hair. Like, No, like people talk about it. Like suddenly, like one day he started looking like a Swedish vampire for some reason, and like and it's really sketchy about why. And like the more you read it, like the more like no, I mean this kid's like spent like weird shit happened to this dude as a kid. That's all I'm saying. I also don't trust people who are married to South Africans.
Okay,
That's my own personal pet
please
peeve.
don't do that, Matt. That's just kind of being weird. And I know you think it's funny, but people are going to interpret it the wrong way.
Oh no, not the Boers.
But all right. So do you want to? I think Daryl was asking a question. That's
Okay. Let's answer his question.
Okay, so he's asking: would you call the events in Eastern Europe from 1940 to 1950 the OR a Slavic revolution? There was an invasion, genocide of Slavs. The left fought a guerrilla war. People radicalized people's democracies.
I don't know whether I'd call. I don't know what. Well, not all of them were Slavs, like Hungarians, and so
Yeah,
it's definitely revolutions in formerly fascist countries.
Yeah, like I mean that's like a really broad thing. There's like how many countries?
Okay, I mean, and so it went up to East Germany. So yeah, so it's definitely a revolution in many countries, and there would have been more revolutions if it weren't for the U.S. and UK.
Yeah.
Like in Italy, there would have been revolutions in Italy. Actually, in the first election, because Catholic priests were like such Nazis that so the communists, the Catholics, okay, so the liberals advertised the communists as being against Christ, and then they said they were with Christ. But because Italy had gone through such hell and the Catholic priests were such fucking fascists, like they literally chanted "Dute, Dute, Dute" outside. Like we wrote an article about that. That actually Christ lost that election.
Yeah.
To the communists, yeah.
And then that's why they had to start Operation Gladio in Italy and the Years of Lead and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been like, I keep running through my head what these countries could have done differently to not have fallen. And there's no one easy answer.
No,
there isn't, because when the power is in, so uneven, it's not.
Yeah, you have like basically these peasants with no shoes who are the left in these countries with nuclear powered USA and Britain, and they're like all sorts of psyops, weird psychotic thing, like everything. And it's amazing they were even lasted those 50 years or 60 years or 40 years.
Right.
Daryl's asking why Hungarians and Uralic and Hungarians were enslaved by Arabs and Turks. So why are they not Slavs?
Because they don't speak a language group known as Slavic language.
Yeah,
they're Magyars.
They're Magyars. Yeah, that's the thing.
I didn't know they were Magyars.
Yeah, actually, because of the Belakun.
In Hungarian that's what it's called, like Magyar.
Oh, no, it's pronounced more like a D. It's Magyar.
Yeah, that's right. They've got an alphabet you can't trust.
Okay, so but actually, after World War I, Belakun started the Belakun Socialist Republic, which they cruelly they used like these fascist troops from Romania to quell. And in order to punish the Magyars, they basically the way they drew Hungary, they left 60% of the Magyar population outside of Hungary, and it's still that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were afraid of having all Magyars together in one country.
Is that why that's why Israel did what it did too, with Palestine being West Bank and Gaza, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And Netanyahu, okay, so since Arafat died, the PLO with Abbas had turned weak sauce. So then Netanyahu realized that if Hamas was in the Gaza, they could kind of like play each other off. So he had been funneling money to Hamas to make it stronger because he needed that weird super villain to kind of basically rile up his base. And so since like at least 2008 or even before, he had been like, and he even bragged about that, about how he made Hamas stronger and allowed money and whatnot. So it's like he made the villain in order to continue his policies, basically.
Mm.
So Daryl is saying, but Slavs come from your relation to slavery mostly, right? So that's why he was.
Yeah, well, that is where the word slave comes from. Is the word Slavs.
But modern reference is the is languages related to Russian, basically.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. So, well, do we know the name of that? It wasn't MK Ultra. Was not the name of the cult.
No, MK Ultra is a FBI program. No, CIA program for quote unquote mind control. They did there were many experiments they did. For example, there's a very good case to be made that Jonestown, where people like committed mass, was like an MK Ultra experiment, because there's so much strangeness in that. We don't know everything. Everything has not been.
That last audio recording that they released of like the whole thing, like, is so freaking creepy and like funny, like they like in like that same like incredibly dark way that like with Kevork's brother getting kidnapped. Basically, it's like this tape of like God knows who, and they're apparently like reviewing video footage that was taken of Jonestown. They're just kind of like shooting the shit at each other about like some technical like bureaucratic stuff. Nobody knows who's on this tape. The last words said are, they're going to want to autopsy these bodies. And then somebody goes, shit. And the tape is off right there.
We actually interviewed a Jonestown survivor in Historically, which we'll put a link to. There's also a really good case to be made that Theodore Kaczynski was tortured by, like when he was in Harvard, he volunteered for like this weird experiment, psychological experiment for like $20. And
the records of which are like blacklist classified for the next 75 years.
I think Fringe was real.
What?
Fringe was, I think they used that for Fringe. Did you ever watch the show Fringe?
No, I didn't.
So
I'm aware of it.
It's actually a good show. Esha, you'd probably actually like it. But they
Oh, I know Fringe. I know Fringe. Okay. I've never seen an episode.
Professor, but he's like locked up in the loony bin because he's but that was the whole thing. Like, he was doing these experiments. He had a secret lab in Harvard, and they reopen it. Like, that's where the show takes place, is out of this lab in Harvard.
I see. Okay. Can somebody Google which the name of Assange's cult for Patanilio?
I'm like looking it up right now.
Okay. Okay. That's funny. So that's MK Ultra, and so there are many projects emanating from MK Ultra, which some are declassified, some we know that used to be MK Ultra projects, some we don't know, some we're guessing, and so they did have weird projects involving extreme religious cults. This is because that they were trying to see how they could engage in mind control. So if it seemed, for many people, if it seems like to fit the criteria of MK Ultra, they may guess it is, or it may have been confirmed to be an MK Ultra cult.
My dad was in the army, drafted in the army in the early 60s when they were doing the experiments on people there too with acid.
Project Deadwood or something like that.
Yeah. So he could have gone and done it. He could have signed up for it. They were just
the Assange cult was called the Family, also known as the Santini Ketan Park Association, or the Great White Brotherhood.
Yep. I remember that now. Why didn't I remember that? I just watched something on that.
And they are tied into experiments that the CIA admitted to running in Australia, like something like that. And it started around 1964.
The other thing they're talking about in comments is that Mehdi was saying that because we were mentioning about Assange maybe hacking into the Pentagon or something like that. So Mehdi was mentioning that my uncle's DARPA contract was to do exactly that, try to hack into systems to find where security issues were.
Okay, no, that's common. I was just
But then they were going to, what was the other DARPA stuff? Oh, then someone said the Nazi Werner von Braun was almost.
yeah, he was a NASA person.
Yeah, he was almost being head of the DARPA, so, or of DARPA. I'm saying the DARPA.
Yeah.
So, what else is going on in the comments?
Yeah, I can never get chat to work over here. So,
So in Alabama, there's a civic center named Von Braun.
Ew. Okay, you guys need to work on changing it to the Che Guevara Civic Center.
yeah.
You gotta get that.
Literally anything else except for monuments to Nazis are for Canada and Ukraine, people.
Exactly. Or Estonia.
Or Estonia, yeah. So they still have more concentration camps than colleges.
Exactly.
I was so scared that they were trying to steal her in Estonia because she texted me at the border and she's like, "Oh, the bus can't get through," and I'm like, "They better not take you in Estonia."
Yeah. They basically said the border is closed at around 3 a.m. when I was in Estonia. And the driver on the bus was like, "Calm down. We'll just have to see." And then I was like waiting. And then about 40 minutes later, they're like, "Oh yeah, we opened the border again."
That's
it
weird.
was a shift change.
Yeah, it was a shift change. But I don't know why they said the border is closed to us. They were just being jackasses.
Yeah. I'm like sitting here trying to search to see if they're shutting down the borders.
Yeah, I was searching too to see if they were shutting down the border, and Estonia seems to threaten to shut down the border every week.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, because the being like right next, bordering like a top 15 economic powerhouse country, while you're in the middle of a recession that you have no hope of pulling yourself out of, like that let's close the border to like the one source that could actually help us.
Oh yeah, exactly. And on top of it, you can see the decay of all the privatization. Like their only train lines privatized, and you can see where there used to be nice Soviet lines, and then there's like grass growing, and it's all decayed. And yeah. Well, this one restaurant I went to, they claimed it was an Estonian restaurant that was open in 1638. It was open in 1638, and it used to be a restaurant owned by Estonians. But some corporation from Italy bought them all, and yeah.
So what is that? Is that like the legacy of Mussolini's heroic capitalism?
No, it's the legacy of the post-Soviet Estonian fascism. So they just had a mass. They basically agreed to privatize everything, and the minimum wage in Estonia is like 400 euros a month. And latte costs $5, just so you know. That's not enough for most people to live on.
No.
Yeah. So the lattes cost almost as much as here, but
the minimum wage is $4.60 a month.
That's nuts. And I mean, like the euro and the USD are basically trading like 1-1 now. Like, is that still a thing?
Well, it doesn't even matter. Once you check the cost of latte, you'll then check the food price. It's very. They can't afford to. Most Estonians are living with their parents. They can't, and just like gaming, and they can't afford. They're not really nice people. They're like, a lot of them have secret Soviet nostalgia, even though they're totally not old enough to remember the Soviet Union. But they are.
They're ruled currently by like nepo babies of the Great White Terror.
Exactly, and they really don't like the economy is struggling. They're struggling. They don't know what. There's not much they can do. Like there's very big risk. Like it's like capitalistic hellscape when you're on the bottom of the food ring.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like right now, Estonia is to Finland what Ukraine is to Poland.
Yeah. Exactly.
The place you want to be.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they're experiencing capitalism on the most bottom of the food chain.
I was saying for the fact of
why Europe anyway,
why they would be nostalgic of it is how like trauma can go through the DNA. Maybe like good things can come through your DNA too.
Oh, I hope trauma can't.
What a weird
Estonian
indication
DNA.
of Lysenko that would be.
No. You don't need trauma to come through Estonian DNA because Estonia was one of the few Judenfrei zones. And they only had 600 Germans, so it was all done by the locals. So hopefully none of that thing came through the DNA.
Yeah.
Well, they just kind of understand what is happening because they're suffering. When you're suffering, you're looking for answers to what's causing your suffering.
Yeah, pretty much. I
can't pay my rent because I'm 40 and I'm living with my parents.
Yep.
And I can't, and I'm an incel because I'm living with my parents, and so are my brothers.
Hey, I moved back here at 40.
No, but you understand. It's like there's a difference choosing to live with your parents and not having minimum wage being so low that you can't afford an apartment.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. They should be able to. You can't even and then they wonder why people aren't having kids or something.
Problem.
They're not having kids because they're not secure in their 20s or 30s.
Or they're 40. Yeah, exactly. And then Estonia is like, oh, no one's having kids. They're like, yeah, that's because their minimum, you have to double the minimum wage at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
And give them universal health care and deprivatize something so they have some opportunities.
Yeah. I still think a family of 4 should be able to live on one wage.
I agree.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In Belarus is a totally different story. Lukashenko says that, well, you raise the first baby and we as a state will raise all the rest. As in, he's making sure they get enough benefits so that they don't have to worry financially if they can raise the baby. They're not moving them to some baby raising farms or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What?
Oh, I was just going to read something Daryl wrote. They portray Estonia like Sweden in the U.S. in my economics classes specifically. Estonia got very good reviews. Lithuania was spoken of highly, but people admitted the economy was a basket case.
Yeah, I mean, Estonia, okay, it's great for if you were a real estate loan shark or something like that. Yeah. It's great. You can go.
That, by the way, has always been the case with Estonia. What they call the Estonia National Awakening happened in the mid-19th century, and it was literally 6 dudes who became the first Estonians that could actually read their own language, using their newfound literacy to write laws that de facto made their land piracy legal. And
exactly.
that's the basis for the entire country. From the moment that happened, all through its history, under the Tsar being what was it, the Grand Duchy of Estonia or something like that.
Yeah.
The only time it wasn't like that was under the USSR, and then the USSR is illegally dissolved and the land pirates take over again.
Exactly. And then the funny thing is that the land pirates in Lithuania are literally called Landbergis.
Yeah.
Yep.
They also brought up Operation Midnight Climax.
I don't know about that one.
Oh, that one happened real close to home out here. That was just in Boston.
Yeah. What was that, Matt?
That was introducing heroin into minority communities.
Oh, that sounds like okay. That is okay. That sounds actually pretty normal.
It was the precursor for the Reagan crack epidemic. That's where they picked up all the
I thought the Reagan crack epidemic happened because they allowed the Contras to smuggle cocaine into the U.S.
Well, yeah, but the effect of that basically as a means of justifying the mass suppression of minority communities came from the introduction of what was basically that strategy was developed introducing heroin into Black communities in the 60s.
But why didn't heroin work?
It's heroin.
Oh, it makes people sleepy.
Yeah, highly.
Yeah, no, and like it doesn't matter. It matters less, like, you know, like what effect the drugs ultimately have on people, even though it's like nothing particularly good. It's more about you can use that as an impetus to police
Yeah, they
the
were trying to
population.
control and stuff like that. But like, when was it? Like, at what point do you think that they sat there and they were like, oh, we did all this, and we have, you know, what we could do? We could do like a crime bill and like put them all in jail and then use them as
In the 70s, Haldeman and Nixon are literally on tape saying those exact words to each other.
Exactly.
Well, we're going to keep
and N-words.
Yeah, we're going to make drugs illegal and arrest these N-words for that, because we can't just say we're arresting the N-words for being N-words. It will make us look bad.
Oh, so, and then they said they'll make another drug illegal to get the hippies who are protesting us.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's like someone thought of the money end of it. Someone was like, at some point, was like,
and that's how the CIA.
Oh, okay. Prison, privatized prison happened under Reagan.
Yes. Yeah, privatized prisons under Reagan. The CIA makes its money through narco trafficking. That's been a thing for ages.
That's what the Contras got its money through narco trafficking. CIA allowed the Contras to make its money through narco trafficking.
Right. Well, who made the money in Afghanistan through the narco trafficking? Like where do you think like they learned that, when they had like, what was it, Hekmatyar? Was he was the heroin guy?
And the Mujahideen made the money through narco trafficking.
And who were they working for?
CIA.
Exactly.
Everyone was making money, but it all stemmed up from.
No, everybody was getting a cut, but it was a CIA operation.
Yeah, I mean they started that.
You know, it's not a coincidence that Biden sloppily gets out of Afghanistan in like the most half-assed way possible. Like, we're talking like 6 months later, like the CIA's at Congress talking about we need money.
No, but then when you look at the poppy seed production after like Biden gets out of Afghanistan, boom, it's like really it comes back to pre-2001 levels.
So, yeah. I mean, all that, all the drug stuff and making money for the CIA. That was them just getting started. That was them. That was Dulles and all them coming up with all that. You know, they were making. They started they had the Italians in on it.
The Italians were on it for like Project Gladio. They they were helping like install fascists back in Italy with using that money.
With the CIA and the drug. There's multiple interviews with different FBI agents that have been filmed over, not FBI. Well, yeah, FBI and DEA agents. Like, since that was started, that it's almost not worth it to actually do their job, because every time like they track these drug lords down, they're literally on CIA payroll. When we follow them, we catch them in like constant meetings with CIA agents. So like we can't do anything because they're federal assets. So,
they were running drugs out of Lebanon too, right?
Yeah.
In the 80s. 70s, 80s, I guess.
And I mean, honestly, like, if you want to, it wasn't like Midnight Climax where this was developed or even perfected as a system. I mean, this goes back to the Opium War. That's really where like the whole concept started.
Yeah. Yep. And they apply, they used alcohol here on.
Yeah, they did that too. Like, we got Lennon on record saying
Ireland
is basically a liquor deal.
There are Soviet posters which I can bring up. I'm too tired right now for it, but that talk about how like alcohol
these like I've seen so many like anarchists use these as like proof of like Soviet oppression, because like they have these posters that like basically amount to, maybe don't get blind piss drunk by noon every single day of your life.
And then people did not
maybe do anything else.
Actually, people after the Soviet Union came, when they were not like peasants who were getting beaten beaten by their landlords and used literally as cattle. Like they would hook them up to the plows as people. They'd hook people up to plows. People didn't
Right.
need to get drunk that much. They were like happy with their lives. They're like, oh, we're having our own farms and feeding our children food and schools, and then they didn't need the same alcohol.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, anarchists are sometimes so not thinking. Well, the same thing happened in Cuba too, where people like Cuba's like alcohol consumption just like went boom, like way down right after the revolution because people didn't need that much alcohol. to cope
Yeah.
with
I
life.
mean, it's wild. Like once you kick out the mafia and the casino cartels,
And
like,
the prostitution, the child prostitutes.
yeah, like suddenly, like like you don't need this vice squad anymore.
Yeah, you don't need all that alcohol anymore. You're just like, yeah, Cuba's consumption of alcohol like went way down too.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah. So what else do we freebase about?
Oh, freebasing over there.
I'm
This is how we found this road.
Who is Emery? Oh, Dave Emery. I like Dave Emery too, and I have trodden the same ground as Dave Emery, according to Norval Rogers. Thank you, man.
All right, I need a bathroom break. I will be right back.
Okay, go to the bathroom. So what do we talk about? Let's see. Oh yeah. Ask any question, people.
What happened to you this last week?
Me?
Yeah, how many interviews did you
Oh
have?
yeah, I've been on a lot of NPR-ish local public radio channels talking about Aaron Bushnell. Matt's gonna get conspiratorial about Aaron Bushnell too, and I don't want to deal with this.
He's in the bathroom.
Okay, good. When he comes back, we will not let him get conspiratorial, because when there's no evidence and you get cynical and you get cynical, all you do is like take any people's actions, because people are actually marching on Washington, D.C. today. People are marching in New York City by the thousands today. You're just like sapping people of their energy. So you have to wait for evidence before saying that something is a limited hangout or a CIA op.
Yeah.
And so he thinks Aaron Bushnell is like basically some kind of US government plot. He may be, but we don't have any evidence of that yet. But he has got, Nicolas Maduro has offered condolences. Evo Morales has done that. There are artists in Gaza commemorating him. There's a really cute picture of a Palestinian kid saluting him, and he's like a soldier like this. In China, artists have like saluted him. Xi has offered. So it's like you have to be careful. Yes, the U.S. probably needs to move all their resources to the new world war with China. And so they want to cut their other engagements. Yes, that is definitely true. But we don't have any evidence that they used Aaron Bushnell for this. And so Matt's gotten conspiratorial in that. And he's kind of gotten like, for me, I kind of want to maintain my reputation of respectability. So unless I see a document from the CIA saying, we did X, I will not even do a one-off inference of X. I need to see that document from the CIA before I say the CIA did this.
Yeah. But also, if it stops at that, like if that is like how, the U.S. needs to maneuver their way out of supporting it, then I guess, okay.
But we don't have any evidence. And when you're a small historical podcast going against the world, you can't afford to get conspiratorial. You have to have solid evidence without a single inference, like literally like them writing this on a document that you FOIA in order to maintain your reputation.
Limited hangout is like,
okay, limited hangout is when they so there's somebody, I forgot, there's a writer in The Intercept who often like has these strategic leaks from the FBI or the CIA where they say something like Biden administration rethinking their stance on Israel. So this is not a real leak in that it is only done as a PR for the Biden administration, and they're not actually rethinking this, but they want some gullible idiots to think that the Biden, and so that would be an example of a limited hangout.
Yeah, Sid put it nicely. A limited hangout is when one conspiracy is revealed to distract from another.
Oh yeah. And yeah, like often when you say the State Department, some people in the State Department, unnamed, are dissenting about Biden's policy in Israel. No, they're not. If they were dissenting, they would be like mailing these documents to every press agency and then doing live streams about this and then quitting their job and saying, I quit, and here are the documents from the state that shows. So they're not dissenting.
No, it's a game that I don't like. I mean, they're still pushing to, they're still sending stuff there. Like they're not stopping.
I do not. Okay, Mr. Difficile, I do not suspect Cloak and Dagger. He gave his life. Matt is the one who suspects this. He wrote this in a tweet because he's like in the cynical phase where he's like excessive caution, and he's in that cynical phase. So I don't have any evidence.
We're talking, and we're not going to talk about it anymore.
No, we're not.
Talking,
we were dissing you.
No, we were talking about Bushnell and your tweet, and then
we were dissing you.
Which one?
Don't worry about it. We were dissing you. You can watch it later.
But actually, all these interviews about self.
And I was giving it the history of self-immolation and what it had to do with ancient Buddhist and Hindu philosophy, and how fire has a different meaning in Hinduism and Buddhism as opposed to Christianity and Judaism, because fire has to do with sin and hell in Christianity and Judaism, and it's often associated with evil, while in Hinduism it has to do with birth and power and love, because in Hinduism, when two people get married, it's called Agni Sakshi, which means fire as a witness. And so that's how people profess their eternal love with each other, using fire as a witness. So fire has the different meaning in Hindu and Buddhist culture than in Christian cultures. So that's what I was talking about.
All right. Okay. I thought it was it's not like a cleansing thing.
It has cleansing ritual things too. There's that in Buddhist philosophy. There's in Hindu philosophy, it can be meaning of love. In Hindu philosophy, it can also be an expression of protest. So there was a goddess who was Parvati. This was not Parvati, but this was the incarnation before Parvati. I can't remember what her name was, but she was married to Shiva. And Shiva was kind of a weird guy. He'd hang out in the cemetery and had dreadlocks and was dancing all the time. He may or he may not have ingested some substance.
I used to hang out with that dude that you're describing right now.
Yeah. So he's a god. Anyway, so he'd smear ashes on himself. And so her parents basically disrespected her husband. And then so she was like, how dare you disrespect my husband? And then she jumped into the fire. And then there was a next life, and then they got back together. I can't remember the rest of the story.
I've heard that story. Either you told me that story or I read it, because I like a lot of the
mythologies.
Mythologies and stuff.
Yeah, but I can't. I don't remember why Dakshini was her in previous incarnation, and then she became Parvati.
Daryl's talking about how the compassionate heart of Jesus is the heart on fire, but you are totally right, because Christianity contradicts itself about fire.
Yeah.
So,
so
it contradicts itself about a lot of things.
We're not fighting. Cannabis fantasy. We're not fighting. Are we fighting, Matt?
No.
You won't even tell me like what you're talking about. I don't even know what tweet you mean. I tweeted.
So you talked about how David Bushnell. Sorry.
The burning Bushnell.
Okay, you talked about how it might be a limited hangout because the U.S. wants to start a war with Taiwan.
No, I did not.
I'm late. Okay, let me find it.
I did not say anything about Bushnell and Taiwan.
Okay, so let me find you. your tweet. Okay, so let's. Okay, fine. We're not fighting though. We're best friends, aren't we?
Yeah, like I don't. I have no idea what any of you were talking about. Like I was just in the bathroom. I realized my wall's leaking. I have to deal with that on a weekend now when I can't get it.
But okay. So Janet. Okay, here's the tweet, and we're not fighting at all.
The burning bush in that. Well, that's the old
fine. Okay. Whatever, you can call anyone anything. Okay, so Janet, do you want to show this?
What? Oh, you sent me some?
Yeah, I sent you the tweets we're talking about.
Yeah, but no, I've been calling, the talking about like the meaning of fire in like Christianity. I've been calling this guy like the burning bush now, because like
because of the burning bush mythology.
Yeah, who gave Moses the 10 Commandments.
That's
Oh,
that's what we were talking about.
No, we were not talking about that.
No. Daryl was bringing it up because of the Christianity.
Oh, okay.
I can't even say.
So
yeah, no, I've made a lot of tweets about. I've made a lot of tweets about Bushnell.
Okay.
And my overarching point with this is like you shouldn't need like an active duty U.S. service member that had a very last minute crisis of conscience to inform your worldview on this.
Oh, okay.
Like that's just like my overall point.
Okay, I agree with you on that. You okay, never mind. Something got lost in the translation then.
Okay, I'll stop sharing.
Okay, so we are in complete agreement. Something got lost in the translation, or maybe due to late night sleepiness.
See, and we're talking about you when you weren't here, and then it wasn't even right.
Yeah, sorry, but so don't. Okay,
that's quite possible.
Don't talk about people without asking, without doing research and asking them about their opinion.
Yeah. Wait till they're dead first.
No, wait till they're coming out of the bathroom before you talk about somebody.
Yeah. The media is fighting with itself.
Yeah, that is very true. They from the start they were very conflicted about how they're going to smear Bushnell. Like he was grew up in like a Christian cult with an anarchist past. We don't know what we're doing.
Like what do they think anarchists are doing? They are basically making dumb TikToks about authoritarianism.
Yeah, like one of my favorite Twitter anarchist moments was this proof that the FBI considers them a credible threat, and it was a post Battle for Seattle assessment where like they straight up said like they display limited ability to get together and trip over trash cans. Their only defense is that they are so white we cannot recognize them as the bad guys immediately. That was basically like the entire point of this brief, like was talking about how non-threatening the anarchists are, and like the Battle for Seattle as like being the absolute peak of their like revolutionary.
Yeah, they did a piss poor job of stopping the WTO from being signed.
Yeah. Well, we could tell, right?
Yeah. So today I was looking at Argentinians, and these are not anarchists, of course. These are MLs or socialists. So Javier Milei tried to like increase fares, and then so all these MLs are just like running, like they're doing the hurdle and like fare jumping by the millions. Yeah, they're fair, not by the thousands, because Buenos Aires population is in 20 million. So they literally, to the point where cops are overwhelmed. Even if they had guns, they wouldn't be able to shoot at people. And cops have been like, because of the entire entire population is in these subway stations, like the cops can't even like see more than 1 centimeter. So that's how you actually do things. And people in Seattle, Battle for Seattle, that was like a really piss poor attempt. What are they doing?
Not much worth remembering, honestly. Like they definitely didn't disrupt any trade.
No, and they did not disrupt any signing.
Yeah, no,
and they did not even bring education about the WTO to the bigger world.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the only thing that happened out of that was like somehow like we got the term globalism to stick. Like, boy, that was helpful. Like honestly, like if you want to protest the U.S. imperial apparatus. Like at this point, like pretty much like the example of how to do that is what Yemen is doing.
Yeah, Yemen is doing a great job because insurance companies won't insure U.S. and UK ships anymore.
Exactly.
But they are insuring China ships, and UK is trying to pretend they're China, and China's not letting them pretend they're China.
That was really, really funny. Some absolute Merry Melodies, Looney Tunes ass shit. Like they just like registered like a vessel as like totally Chinese boat. Like that's it. Like, and they wrote it there in English, and like they were shocked that the plan didn't work.
Yeah. Well, speaking of UK vessels, we did a little segment last week about how the BBC fact checked about how the ship is still above water.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That was.
As of today, the ship is not above water anymore.
No.
It sunk.
It's sunk.
Yeah. So the Houthis were right.
Fertilizer in it? Fertilizer? Is that what it was? It was carrying fertilizer, right?
Allegedly.
Wow, they sunk the UK's bullshit tanker. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So the crew was all evacuated to Djibouti, and I guess they're repatriated back home. But yeah, what would be really funny if Yemen closed the Gulf of Aden on this side and Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz on the other side. No one's getting any oil anywhere.
Yeah, no, pretty much. You're gonna have to like go around like we're talking like pre-Suez Canal stuff, like going around the Horn of Africa.
No, you can't even go around the Horn of Africa. No, you have to go through Israel, then through the Mediterranean. Oh yeah, you have to go around the Horn of Africa.
Yeah, you'd have to go all the way around.
Yeah, no. Like we're talking about, like these guys want to talk about reject modernity, embrace tradition. There's your tradition. You have to sail all the way around Africa
to before colonization. That's the exact point of colonization is when they started making these.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Once they started digging artificial canals to like make trade routes easier.
Yeah, and okay, well, like I said, so like Yemen needs to close the Gulf of Aden and Iran at the same time, and everyone's fucked.
Yep. Zelensky and Bill Clinton were at Millet's inauguration. I finally got chat to work here, by the way.
Zelensky, weird. What were they doing there?
Yeah, I don't want to know what like that cokehead and that child predator do when they like hang out together. I mean the idea of like Bill Clinton like being anywhere without like being like on the Hillary leash is scary enough. But
yeah, it is. And the fact that Zelensky was asking for money. Okay, that's obvious. Okay. And I don't know what Bill Clinton was doing.
I don't know. Like he's Bill Clinton. He's got his fingers in everything.
I don't want to. Yeah, that's not the thought I want to.
You probably went to the wedding to steal the wedding gifts. You get a lot of cash. He's probably like.
Yeah, I know two people who have posed for photos with Bill Clinton, and both of them said that his hand was on their ass in the photos. Like if Hillary's not around and like you let him stand anywhere behind you, he's grabbing some ass. It's the Bill Clinton way.
Okay.
Didn't Bush Senior did that too from his
Yeah, I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like they're all grabby, gropey fuckers. Like all of them. Whole lot. Like like I had that other tweet, like why isn't anybody talking about that one? My ex's mother was a diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic, and her like big recurring quote unquote delusion was this horror of herself and her daughter being kidnapped and sold into quote what at the time was called white slavery, that we now call like human trafficking, sexual slavery basically. And like sure, that sounds paranoid and crazy until you consider that the world is controlled by an untouchable cabal of billionaire pedophile human traffickers. Then like this fear seems a lot less crazy, but apparently you need risperidone for that shit.
Yeah. Well, the schizophrenic used to be the
There's a book by John Metzer called The Protest Psychosis. It's an account of all these various reasons. Like for a while, a symptom of schizophrenia was seriously believing the United States to be controlled by a white supremacists. Basically, that was like that was considered a symptom of schizophrenia in the 60s.
If you believe
Well,
that.
you know what,
If you believe that white supremacy is a problem in the United States, that was a criteria for schizophrenia in the 60s.
Okay, well, you also know about
even now, if you look up like the quote unquote risk factors for schizophrenia, it gives away the game. Like one of them is adolescent marijuana usage, and I love this, childhood adversity.
everyone has okay, but then let's look at the drapetomania, where a slave wanting to run away.
The obsessive compulsive disorder to flee situations.
To flee, not situation, slavery.
Yeah, free slavery. Yeah, specifically slavery.
Yes.
Draptomania.
Yeah.
How many things do they have
Or
on the list
drapetomania.
of women of, like, you know, the hysteria?
Hysteria was basically the cure was like putting a vibrator on for her orgasm.
Oh, this hilarious like steam powered dildo built into the wall.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a doctor. This is my job. I'm doing a science.
Yeah.
Yeah, just hand cranking like Steamboat Willie.
Yeah.
Like she needed a doctor for that. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh well. I mean, yeah. Like they didn't teach anybody about their own anatomy back then. Like it was like a mortal sin to perform an autopsy because you couldn't take people's clothes off for like hundreds of years. Like that was like the whole thing in the Enlightenment. Like it was a big reaction to the concept of empiricism. Like you could know things, and the studying of human anatomy was a huge part of that. But you know, like whatever, but like, you know, the whole thing, like, I mean, the term hysterectomy like literally means by like yanking out your uterus or taking out the crazy. That's what that word means.
Yep. Okay.
It takes out the crazy. I love
thought
that.
we were starting early so that I could go to bed early.
You're the one who's still awake. I'm not doing that to you.
I know, you're right. I'm getting sleepy now, but you guys can.
Yeah, we're going on 3 hours. I mean, so like
go. I already took my medicine. That's what I was doing when we came back from.
For your sleepy medicine, or?
Well, you know my medicine.
Oh, your relaxing medicine.
You know what I mean by my medicine.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, the medicine that's very illegal in Russia.
It's okay. I'm here.
Yeah, no, that's one of my favorite things about like any like Asian country, like for the most part, is it's changing rapidly, like for the worse. But like they like don't see marijuana as being like really any different from heroin.
No.
But like you can pick up magic mushrooms like basically anywhere.
Oh yeah.
Up until like 2010 when the Nippon Kaigi ruined it, you could get Amanita muscaria dried and dehydrated in little baggies from any herbal tea shop in Japan. Like it was all over the place. Then that went away, and well, now Shinzo Abe's dead, so that's real funny. But the mushrooms.
Well, for me, I really want somebody to do that meme with like the virgin American mass shooter who buys his guns and like doesn't get his target. And the Japanese shooter who makes his gun and hits his target.
Who makes a battery-powered shotgun out of PVC pipe and electrical tape.
Yeah.
That's so fucking funny.
Yeah, like
I mean that guy is a global hero, objectively.
Well, he's like a Japanese people are, because he did it for his mother. He's actually considered a hero to the point that they're afraid to try him in Japan.
They should be. Like You know, seriously. You know what's really funny to me is when some white guy gets all up in arms and sanctimonious about Europe's removal of the death penalty, and like they'll frame the United States.
Okay,
Listen, and like because I know your theory on that, but like and they'll frame like the United States as being in the quote unquote dubious company of China and Iran as being countries that still implement the death penalty. Japan always gets left out of that. Japan still has the death penalty, and not only that, their only means of execution is the long drop hanging. Like they don't use lethal injection. They don't use the guillotine. No, they hang you from a rope on like a 10-foot drop. And like I think the last time they used it was like 1997. I think it was like a lot more recently than you
not
think.
having the death penalty.
Like, well, yeah, but I mean, even like the crazy countries that do have it, like quote unquote crazy,
they do it like once. Yeah, they do it like once a year or something.
Yeah, no, there's a whole lot of like the U.S. loves executing people, and like I mean, you can sit on death row for like 20
usually.
years, but it's a slow. It's important to bureaucratize your death machine.
Well, okay. Another thing is that you notice in China they're not like they're executing the billionaires and
exactly.
The bankers.
I've never heard of an execution in China that I did like, that seems fair. Like, it's not like the US where like, we executed this non-verbal autistic 12-year-old because everybody says they saw him shot somebody.
Well, the one that Bill Clinton executed was so not mentally there that he saved a piece of pie from his last meal because he didn't know he was being executed.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's fucking bleak.
Yeah, exactly. So I know.
On that note,
no, let's have to. Okay, we have to end on a happy note. So let's pick something to be happy about.
Hey, I gave you like, hey, remember that time Shinzo Abe got his back blown out, and then like we ended up on this like really depressing thing. Like we were having
yeah. Okay, let's have a happy note. What do we want to talk about?
It was your
suggestion. Happy now.
Okay, we're gonna find something to be happy about. Oh yeah, I have a new friend. So like on my bus to Estonia, I met this lady. She lives here, and she made really good cake.
Oh, awesome!
It was with oranges and chocolate.
Really good cake.
Is that a happy note?
That is a very happy note. Cake is probably one of the happiest notes.
Cake is objective. I don't know anybody. Hey, you remember that time like a couple years ago when like everything was cake for a while?
Oh yeah, that during the COVID. Oh my god, those TikToks were going like a little too far.
Yeah,
oh my god.
Yeah, like oh, you think those are Crocs? No, cake.
Oh yeah, cupcake. And then I was like, oh my god,
this chocolatier that does all that, and he like.
Oh yeah. Did you? I know exactly who you're talking about. Did you see the raptor sculpture that he did entirely in chocolate?
Yeah.
And
then he always just takes a bite out of it and ruins it.
No,
yeah, like I feel bad like eating that stuff. I know you're supposed to, but I mean, like my God, like he's doing stuff that I only thought like Oompa Loompas did, like in real life. Like who's buying this?
Yeah. No, you're right. But there's another TikToker who made everything out of cake that looked so realistic. Like he had people say, "Can you guess the cake?" and they always got it wrong. And he was like, "No, this is the
like,
cake."
Here's the thing though. Like fondant, which is how they do that, is cheating. It's basically like this. It's the reason wedding cake tastes like toothpaste without the mint. It's just this weird like rubber sugary plaster paste thing that you can mold into like any shape and it just holds there. Mm-hmm. So it's straight up cheating, but okay. it is funny to see.
And Norval, I'm reading the chat.
Okay. I guess you don't want to sleep. Let me change the battery then quickly.
Yeah. Shinzo Abe's father or grandfather was no, that is Pedamio. That is.
Oh my god. Okay, hold on. We have to
congratulations on future fatherhood, Norval. Or are you going to do like the whole thing like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be a dad? Nope, wasn't me. Because like, that's a Shaggy reference. Norville Rogers, that's Shaggy's name from Scooby-Doo.
Oh, all right. That was
I'm like 90% sure.
That was tough though. That did take a little explaining to get to. For most people. Well,
Okay, so let me tell you a little story
Not if you're a Scooby-Doo fan.
Norville Rogers.
And
They
not,
came to New York
it was hard
2
for you
years
to
ago.
get because you ate the Scooby snacks.
Hold on.
Scooby snacks.
Congratulations, Norville. Okay, so they came to New York. They were the cutest couple ever. So he was like, he had just met her a month ago, and they were already talking about marriage. It was so cute. I was like, oh, you guys should get married. So congratulations, Norville.
Yes, said Nanda, it was a good joke.
Wait, Norville is not going to be a dad?
No, he is.
Yeah, he is. I made a joke because, like, okay, so he's going by Norville Rogers, which is Shaggy's name from Scooby-Doo, and then I said, "Be like it wasn't me," because Shaggy.
Oh, I didn't get that.
There's more layers to that than a fake cake. Okay, I'm just saying, like that was like the deepest Scooby-Doo joke ever told.
And I snacks, so I didn't get
weed, right?
What?
Scooby snacks are weed.
Yeah, they're what I just had. Like
in Janet's case, perhaps they're just dog treats on the show. Like
no,
allegedly.
because Shaggy's always stoned.
Well, they say that, but like I always should have. I always thought like they should have structured that show so that Shaggy was the only person who ever talked to Scooby and who Scooby ever talked to. But instead of like everyone, because like then it would have been funny. Like, oh yeah, no, because like the only reason Shaggy's there is because he's the one who actually owns the van. All the other three just showed up.
What are they doing there?
Well, maybe they're not really there at all.
Yeah, I know. I've always wondered about that. Like, Shaggy is the only person that it actually makes sense that he's there. He owns the van. How did he meet like this like fucking like ascot douchebag like go-go dancer and the weird lesbian nerd? Where did those people come from, and why are they all hanging out in this weird hippies van? Like talking to the goddamn dog. Like it's such a weird fucking show.
Yeah, Scooby Dooby Doo, where are you? We've got some work to do now.
As we can count on you, Scooby Doo. By the way, if anybody in the chat has never watched the Scooby Doo Mystery Inc. show that they did in like 2012, 2013, I think, watch that urgently. It's amazing. It's the highest form of Scooby-Doo for people that both love Scooby-Doo and hate Scooby-Doo. You will get equal enjoyment out of it. It does not matter which. Like, it's absolutely perfect in, like, basically everything.
I find Scooby-Doo relaxing enough.
You got to watch Mystery Incorporated from, like, 2011, 2012. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
I actually find the old-timey cartoons, like, nice and relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah, like no, there's a lot of like interesting history like about like Scooby-Doo and all that. Like Casey Kasem, who did he was a Lebanese guy and he did the voice of Shaggy for like ages, and he left. He's the reason that Shaggy was a vegetarian.
Oh, why?
Was because Kasem was a vegetarian, and I straight up just said vegetarian, a vegetarian.
This is getting too surreal for me. This is just
I saw the look on your face and I knew what I said. I'm like, oh no, that wasn't just in my head. That's not how vowels work.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Casey Kasem. His actual name is Kemal Amin Kasem.
Oh, nice. Yeah, but yeah, no, he's vegetarian in real life, so he like made.
Yes, he is.
He insisted Shaggy be made a vegetarian too.
Yeah, he
didn't want to glorify like the meat consumption. Basically, they didn't hold on to that in Mystery Incorporated, which I actually think is like its biggest mistake.
It would make sense if Shaggy was like a stoner hippie to be a vegetarian.
Yeah, I think it would make perfect sense. Like every hippie I know is a vegetarian. Like,
especially the silliest conversation I've ever had with Matt, but it's
I take Scooby Doo so seriously. I can't even explain it. I watched it like every day when I was a kid, and I never enjoyed a single minute of it.
Okay, so I'm just looking at this. So in Kazan, Russia, a vegetarian house is looking for residents.
Well, at least I know that they don't want you to show up so they can eat you there. So I mean, what is? I don't understand.
Or maybe they
What
only
the fuck
like
are we
to
talking
eat
about? There's a vegetarian house in Kazan that's looking for by by the way, that's a really infamous prison too. Is Kazan?
No, Kazan is a city.
Yeah, well, their prison is infamous as shit.
Oh yeah, Lenin was there.
Yeah, it's like it's like the Kokorin of Russia, basically.
Oh yeah, but so I was just googling KC Kasem and vegetarian, and this somehow this VK ad came up saying vegetarian house in Kazan is looking for residents.
Why? What is a vegetarian house, and why do they need more people?
Because they have rooms that they have not rented out.
Oh, okay. So it's like a weird, little boarding house, and it's for vegetarians to be vegetarian at each other, so they don't have to talk to the meat eaters, which
or
so
you can have shared cooking or something, whatever. So that house, yeah, it does not have enough. They're not.
That's filled. The weirdest thing. The closest thing you get to that in the U.S. is trap house looking for new residents, where we can freebase together. Now you see, chat. That's called a callback.
See, that's why Russia is more wholesome. You'd have vegetarian.
Oh yeah.
In Kazan, looking for more residents.
Yeah, no, everybody. I don't understand how Russia got the international reputation that it did. Aside from all those dash cam footages, where everybody in Russia is clearly I saw
yes, everyone drives like a maniac.
Outer space, screaming through the sky and exploding with the force of 3 nuclear bombs.
Everyone here drives
like
a maniac. I can assure you that.
And everyone, and I saw that entirely through Russian dash cam footage, and not a single person witnessing that live had any sort of reaction to it whatsoever. And if there were any odds of me at any point growing up under under the Reagan arms race escalations and all that, and all of a sudden I look up and I see a ball of cosmic hellfire hurtling through the sky, I'm gonna do pretty much anything except stay in total silence and continue driving. But that's what everyone in Russia did.
Girl,
what?
Screaming. You're gonna scream high pitch like a girl.
Yeah. Okay. So now, I think now I don't know why I'm not ending.
You're not ending
the stream.
You need to go to bed.
What?
You need to go to bed.
Yes, I do need to go to bed. Okay. VK is Russian, and come and follow me on VK in Russian. I'm Esha PK, I think.
That's a helpful social media advertisement. I think this is how you find me here. You gotta guess. We play hard mode here.
Just look, you'll find me.
I don't exactly know.
If you care enough, you'll find her.
What?
Yeah.
I said, if you care enough, they'll find you.
Yeah,
we could play the game. How many Esha Krishna Swamis are there on Russian social media?
0. 1.
Take your guess and have fun searching that in Cyrillic.
It's really easy. Just transliterate my name literally.
Yeah.
Okay. With that, I will say, see you next week, where we'll have a plethora of guests. Exciting coverage.
Party time.
Yeah.
Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Slava Lenino.
I forgot what I was supposed to say.